I told you I don't want to join your super secret boy band.
No. See, I remember you do everything yourself. How's it working out for you?
I'm sorry, I don't want to get off on the wrong foot. Do I look at the patch or the eye? Yeah. Honestly, I'm a bit hungover. I'm not sure if you're real or if I'm having delirium.
I am very real. I'm the realest person you're ever gonna meet.
Just my luck.
Celebrating 15 years of Rabbit and Red Radio. Now here's your hosts, the King of Porntown and Michael J.
Well. That was quite an opening. And it's great that the image you used to put on Iron Man is pretty spot on with the facial hair that I had from the picture you took it from. So like for a second I was like, okay, did he change it? Now granted, I wasn't tooting my own horn, like I was like, well, I look as good as RDJ, and it's like, well, no, that's not a thing.
But see, that's why when I was, planning, because the funny thing is, I was going to use a totally different scene. I was going to use the scene where, he was at the hearing and they were doing the thing at the beginning of the second one where he's like, I'm your nuclear deterrent or whatever. And, all that shit. I was going to use that. But the thing is, the action moved so fast that it couldn't register the faces that needed to be changed. So it wouldn't have picked up, and it still would have been him. So when I saw that, I was like, fuck, this is perfect. So
that was good. Well, folks, kids, once again, it is time for another episode of Rabbit and Red Radio. It is I, Theo, that one weirdo, your co-host, along with, as usual, joining me is Producer Mike!
Another one that you really leaned into. I can hear it.
My neighbors must be so pissed.
Oh my god. I just realized that. Yeah, they might not be too happy.
But it's like 5:30, 6 o'clock here. I have a set of mutants downstairs that sounds like they're part of the Armenian anvil juggling competition at like 3 in the morning.
Oh no.
Like they are loud as fuck. They sound like RoboCop and Ed 209 fucking. Like it's insane how just and it's I have to think because it's Utah. There's a lot of Erts here. They're just oblivious. And granted, this is an older building, so I kind of get how that could go. But I'm also of the mindset it's like it's stacked living, so you have to be a little cognizant, or at least try to be. That's why, doing that, that's really loud, but it's 6 in the evening here. I'm still within a reasonable time. Now, if we did this shit at 2 in the morning, I expect, I had a neighbor, and thank God that bitch on wheels is gone, along with her fucking mutant circus children. Oh my God. So she lived below us, and she had like 5 kids in a space for like 2 or 3 people. Like this woman had so many kids, I think she fucking used to just carry her uterus on her hip, like for convenience. So seriously though, she was like a broodmare for the state. And her husband or mate was like this little short Hispanic guy, but like her oldest kid was like, he was bigger than the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like this kid couldn't have been any older than like 12 or 13. And he must have had like a pituitary disorder or something because he was fucking huge. I used to call him Mongo Man, like a 12-year-old kid. I used to call him Mongo Man because he was so fucking big. Oh my God. And then he had a second and fourth chin. And I say it that way because he was so fucking big-headed and fat that if he had a third chin, the fourth one was so big and like collapsed on it. So he had a second chin and a fourth chin. And I'm like, bro, you've got more rolls in a fucking bakery at 5 a.m. Like, what are you doing?
I didn't even think that was possible. Well, no. technically, if you think of like the 1,000-pound life and 1,000-pound sisters, but I see those and it's like, how can someone be that, you know,
I mean, there's
like,
because here's my thing. So, and of course, people are like, "Well, you picking on fat fucks," and it's like, well, number one, I'm dumpy. I've got a double chin, but
mm,
also we have we have people that, and I don't want to say okay with that because I know that medical conditions come into play. I understand that situations sometimes are more than the individual. I get that, but I also know that there are people who have health scares and neglect those times, and then their health gets worse and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, you don't really want to pick on fat people, but if you do it to yourself, I mean, you have no one to blame but yourself. Like, okay, perfect example, me. I'm pretty sure I'm close to it. I'm like pre-diabetes. I wouldn't be
mm,
surprised. I haven't had anything fall off or anything like that, but I love candy and I love donuts.
yes,
So I expect that. Like I grew up, and you probably know this too, but I grew up with a ton of people who used to just smoke. And my parents, my mother, George Carlin, rest her soul, you know, she got cancer of
mm,
of a series of cancers, I guess is the best way to put it. But she was never a health buff. She did at one point suffer from anorexia, and then she also suffered from alcoholism. But also, she smoked like a chimney, and then she drank like 20 Diet Cokes a day. Obviously, that can't be good for you. So when push comes to shove and you kind of look at your health, especially when you're told that, hey, you have cancer, and their prognosis, unfortunately, was spot on. They gave her 2
right,
years. She had 2 years. But we all know that we're kind of our own making and doom. We always will be, you know?
right. That's usually how it goes.
It is. And it's unfortunate that we see a lot of this stuff after the fact, but you and I both know, like, I mean, if you drink like 3 Mountain Dews and can't sleep, gee, what do you think the common denominator is?
Yeah,
Probably because
exactly.
you had fucking too many Mountain Dews or whatever.
Hmm.
So it's not necessarily to pick on fat people. I know that sometimes it's a medical condition, but I also know people who are like, well, I'm going to be the size I'm going to be, and that's all there is to it. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's your choosing. But I also am like, well, like any decision, there can be outcomes. There can be other things that happen that will in turn make things harder for you. I have times where um I have heart issues and stuff like that. Nothing crazy yet, but I drink energy drinks quite a bit. And
Hmm.
I enjoy that stuff. I know darn well what it's doing to me. And I try alternatives, I try to make things different. But I also know that if I try to kick caffeine, which I have,
Hmm.
that too is a side effect because then I'll get a headache in 2 hours and then I have no choice
Yeah.
but to get some caffeine. So,
Hmm.
in many ways we live and die by our choices, but I also know that for some people it's it's easier said than done. And the other side of it is we do it to ourselves. And I live in Utah where there's like a fast food joint like every 20 feet. So there you go. But
Really?
this
Wow.
kid didn't look anything like the dad. So I don't know what that arrangement was. But there's a part of me that's like, I look at her and I was like, I hope you fucking lied to him. I hope you said that's his and it's a recessive gene. But these people used to live underneath us.
Hmm.
And they used to bang around and be loud and stuff like that. And it was insane because it was always an excuse because it was like,
Hmm.
well, I'll try to wrangle my kids in. No, 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 no. You are responsible for these fucking things. And
Right.
it's 2 in the goddamn morning. I don't want to hear they're going to do whatever they're going to do. You're the fucking parent. I know you're technically outnumbered, like 4-1, 6 if you count the big fuck. But but having said that,
wait, that was great.
but having said that,
So nonchalant. I love it.
and it's and you know there was one time like I was like tempted because I would tell people and they're like and granted like even another thing too is like food is different, like additives are different, which can have an effect, but people thought I was lying. And then I had a thought briefly where I was like, what if I take a picture and send it to him? And I said, you know, a middle-aged man taking a picture out of the clear blue, unknowns to like a 12, 13-year-old. Yeah, that's like Catholic Church behavior. I'm going to pass on that. Sends the wrong message, if you will. But they used to be so fucking loud. And it was always like, and I remember like we would tell the office and call the cops. Like they were just so bad. So one time, this one Christmas Eve, I think it was Christmas Eve or right before, we were hanging out, had some Molly, and was playing. I mean, we weren't too loud, at least in our heads, but we were listening to Last Christmas from Wham, and that mom came up, and that bitch was like, "Hey, can you keep it down? My kids were trying to sleep." Now I was floating, so I couldn't like go back and say what I wanted to say, but I said, okay. But then we looked at each other and we were like, that fucking bitch just told us to fucking keep it down. Like her fucking Mongolian circus that happens 24/7 under us never stops. And then they finally ended up moving to another, they still lived here, but they moved to another unit. And they were just still unruly. They don't live in the complex anymore. She still knows people here, and I see her on occasion, and I'm like, I just look at her, I'm like, God knows you don't need any more fucking children, but, you know, if you're going to carry on your fucking uterus. Well, some people are like that, though. Like, I get that having children can be a fulfilling experience, but there are some people who think they have nothing else that they want to do or better to do. And I'm grateful for my 2 kids, but, like, I see, especially in this state, I see people with like 7 fucking kids. I'm like, what do you do? Like, what do you do? Oh my God. Oh, yes.
Don't mind me. The sun is just shooting in my eyeballs.
I spent again.
It was cloudy all before we, like a half hour before we started. It was cloudy as shit. And then right as we're going, the fucking
it just got cloudy here. But yeah, it was insane. And that kind of piggybacks, and I'll bring that up a little later. I talked to you, and I want to talk to everybody about there in a little bit about movie going etiquette is what I'm going to call it.
It doesn't exist anymore, but there we go.
Oh my God. Or should I just get into it now since I've segued?
I thought we were segueing, so
okay. You know what? I will treat it
as a segue.
I will treat it as a segue because I really left that door open. So, in turn, with what I just talked about, I actually have something of a topic to discuss. I know we're doing topics. I don't know who we are either anymore. Like, what the fuck? But last night, me and my lady went to see. She was really excited for Jurassic Park Rebirth. So, and we get that it's opening day, and a lot of people are going to want to go, and that's understandable. And look, the cinema, movies mean a great deal to me. Like that is the place that has always made the most sense to me, especially nowadays. But that seems to be on the change, and I'll explain why. So, as expected, you know, it was a big turnout. And towards the early part of the day, there wasn't a ton of people because you can look obviously on your screen how many seats are left and how many aren't. So we sit there, and the first thing we notice, like halfway down, because we have to go up the steps. We usually sit like on the top somewhere, but halfway down, we could hear like a baby, and it's like, oh no. And of course, you know, these assholes especially in a place like Utah. It's all about the kids. You know, the kids are the future, which makes no sense because the kids fucking grow up and they're no longer kids. Like, how does that work?
Right.
No DeLorean there, so I don't know what the fuck that means. But they just do the shh, shh. You know, they're not embarrassed for the right reason.
Mm-hmm.
This is more the ideal of I want to watch the movie. I don't care about other people. And I get they pay their fare like anybody else. But you're not alone. Like, yes, it should feel a singular experience, but you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
So the ideal that people just are like, whatever, and are very non-cognizant is kind of mind-blowing. But it actually gets worse. So previews start, and there's like 3 seats open next to us. So this family comes in with too many fucking kids and not enough fucking common sense.
Mm-hmm.
And because the world is so bananas now, and obviously in many ways the world has always been nuts. It's just how much nuts. But right now the world is pretty Christ on a cracker fucking nuts.
Right.
So these 3 little girls kind of line up next to where I'm sitting because it's just 2 seats. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the parents sit like all the way down. So you have parents who have kids who are separated. And then you have babies over on the side at like a Jurassic Park movie. Now, these are kids. They're going to get fucking scared and they're going to run around and they're going to make noise. And guess fucking what? As sure as the sun will set on this fucking day, that's exactly what happened. What a shock. Holy fuck. Weird, right?
How old would you say the girls were? Like, if you had to guess.
I think the youngest was about 6 or 7. Oldest was maybe 10. And they're all little kids. So it's like, if you're not going to leave a parent up there and you're going to have a kid, watch a kid, that's not going to fucking work, which it did not.
Yeah. It is
so
not.
Halfway through, I mean, sporadically, I went out, talked to the manager. And the whole time I'm like, and I've said this before, probably on the show, I'm pretty certain. There used to be a time in the previews where they would tell you, and they'd have pictures of kids and babies. Mm-hmm. If you can't shut that shit up, get them the fuck out. And I know I sound like an old curmudgeon-y little bougie 50-year-old bitch. But maybe that's what I am, and I'll take that. I'll take that all day. Because thanks to cell phones and thanks to people just being so wrapped up in themselves, nobody pays attention to the world around them and how distracting and frustrating. Because I didn't pay to hear those little fucks. I didn't pay to watch them run around and stuff. So I went and talked to the manager and stuff. And the manager came in, and the kids, not the babies, but the other ones, they're like running up and down the stairs during the movie. Yeah, talk about fucking no class. But it's Utah. There's a lot of classless folks in this fucking place. But having said that, it became so disengaging. We left like what we think was halfway through. We're not sure because we didn't finish the movie. So the manager wanted us to talk to him afterwards. He gave us passes. They actually refunded our tickets. And he was super nice about it. And I was even like, because yelling at him isn't going to do anything. But to give you a little side note to this place, it has become like they have cops patrol there all the time now. It's gotten to be kind of a ghetto theater. And we used to frequent this theater a lot. I'm not going to say which because this one situation does not, exemplify them. The place has always been great.
Will you go back or
great
no?
Service, huh?
Mm-hmm. Will you go back?
Okay, so we have free passes, so yes.
Yes.
At least for this one situation. But
right.
It's changed. So a couple things. So number one, Scorsese said not that long ago, and I think we talked about it on the show previously, but I'm going to hit the point of home again because there's a moral to this story.
Mm-hmm.
That modern audiences are just so different because between phones, social media, streaming services,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to leave the house for much. But when you do leave, you're not exactly going to put down these habits because you don't have to. You have your phone. And many people have that mindset like, well, I paid for the seat. And it's like, yeah, but you're not doing this alone. Even at concerts, I try to get out of short people's way because I'm like, I mean, they stand where they stand. I don't have control over that. But that person didn't pay to look at the back of my fucking head. Like, granted, I've seen the back of my head. It's not worth the price of admission. Not now, not ever. But I was very much like I've had similar situations to this, but this one really hit me hard because with it being a tough time for theaters, I feel like it was never an option for that manager who handled it great and he was wonderful. I am not besmirching the man and I'm not hosing the theater chain. Not at all. But obviously you give people chances. But if you're like halfway through the movie and there's a level of that kind of distraction, and granted, he gave us passes. I mean, there was a time where you were just kicking people out for that stuff, where you could go to like a parent and be like, hey, can you shut your kid up? Because they used to have it in the movies. Like it was something that was reinforced. Now they just go with, well, silence your cell phones. And it's like, okay, they don't go over noise. They don't go over how people act and stuff like that. Because I think they just don't want to fight that. One, because they want to keep the money. They want asses in seats. And two, I think it has really turned into a time where we don't regard anything the way we used to. The sacredness is out of so much of this stuff. And movie going is no different. Because nowadays, a lot of these movies that bomb, which is a lot, you can see them on streaming in like less than a month. So
yeah, pretty much.
Nobody cares about that experience. And I'm one of those people, unfortunately, old-timey maybe, where like the theater experience is supposed to count for something. The whole point is to get away from the house. The whole point is to shut your phone off and be dialed into what, I mean, the screen's fucking huge. Like, why do you want to go to the phone? I don't get that. So we intend to see it in its entirety, hopefully this weekend. But it made me really realize how, because usually when it comes to the summer, I love going to the movies. This is probably the biggest summer so far that I can think of, at least in recent memory, the past couple of years. And obviously the world's in a weird place, and it's kind of been like that since the pandemic. I really, really am starting to find myself removed from the theater experience. I've already been feeling that a lot with like people and just the bombardment of people and what they do and how they handle themselves, usually poorly. And it's like, it reinforces well, I don't have to leave the house for anything, but it also takes away from like things you enjoy, like concerts. I love going to concerts. I hate people. I hate dealing with people, especially now that I see the other side of it, not drinking anymore and seeing what kind of assholes they look like. It's like, are you shitting me right now? And movie going is no different, where, you know, we weren't sure if we were going to get passes or whatever, or, you know, but we were willing to just be like, fuck it. We'll try to catch it another time, or we'll wait for streaming. And that ends up being a huge kind of end of sentence piece. I'll wait for streaming. I'll wait for streaming. Because usually when these movies bomb pretty exponentially, pretty huge, they're on streaming in no time.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because nobody wanted to see them in the theater. Studio's not going to keep paying to keep it in a theater. They've already lost money. There's going to be a write-off there somewhere. They're going to do the studio math. So it may look like it's a hit anyway. Like, dumping things on the streaming is not crazy a process. And I think the other part of it too is that the ideal of just dealing with all that. Like, here's an example. Here's something I came to a conclusion. So, because the movie industry is hurting so much, and they're trying to find ways to get back in the theater, and what they did, especially during the pandemic, now we're kind of at cut your nose to spite your face, where let's say a movie comes to streaming and you didn't catch it in the theater. Okay. Now you can go with streaming apps. Okay. Now the downside of a lot of streaming apps is that they overlap each other. I have learned you kind of got to look in between the lines. And the reason for that being is because I don't need 5 services to have the same movie, because that already feels like, I already feel like I'm overpaying, but it's like, yeah, usually for me, it's more about specific content, like series, like Netflix. I adore Squid Game, and I just finished it, and I'm going to go back to it. But I also adore Severance and Silo and Shrinking. So as far as streaming services, my money goes where I want it to be. I'm not one of those people that buy a bunch of services and then it's like, oh, well, I have this accessibility. And it's like, yeah, but if you don't watch this stuff, my dad did that with cable. The man had 500 fucking channels at one point and he watched 4. Go figure. And they were either auto racing or war. And it's like, yeah, no Nature Channel, huh? No fucking Net Geo, just all this loud shit. Okay. But if you look at like Amazon, okay, or YouTube, you can buy these movies in UHD when they come out for like $25 or $30. Now, let's break that down. Average movie ticket, at least here. Now, I know in like LA or New York, they're more expensive, but the average ticket here right now in Utah is about $10 to $12, give or take.
I wish it was that. It's 20 here.
Jesus. $20?
And that's just for the ticket. You work concessions into that and you're paying.
Did they give you a free kitten or something with it? Like, what the fuck?
They should. They should.
That's insane.
Dude, I went before, it was like for me to get like 2 movie tickets, and then it's $20 just for like the standard. You try to get like IMAX or 4DX
or an XD,
you're paying like you're paying like $30 a ticket or more. And then
see, that makes my point for me.
Popcorn and shit, you're just like, there you go.
Well, see, that makes my point for me because, like right now, if you wanted to buy Sinners, your favorite movie, on.
Oh God.
Oh, by the way, real quick side note: talked to my girlfriend about the show we had last time, and she was like, "Bravo!" She was like, "I hope to meet him one day." She was like, that he's fucking right. And I told her, and I said, even with me liking it, like I get those points about why someone wouldn't. Like that's kind of built in. Like when you watch certain movies, you have to kind of realize that, where it's like Lord of the Rings. I adore Lord of the Rings.
I do too.
I think it's beautiful and masterful. It's 9 hours of walking, and that's not lost on me. Okay, I know that. But right now on Amazon, if you were to go on there, you could buy it for $30 in UHD. Now, granted, movie experience is much different than being at home, but to make that cheap and accessible, and all you had to do, because it came out in March, and then like maybe 2-ish months later, it was available now.
Yeah.
That is not a long time to wait, and it saves you money in the long run because no concessions, no gas, no dealing with people. Like there's a lot there to keep people in the house. And granted, these are movie studios. They're going to work both angles. Hey, if you're not going to make it here, did you want to come and do this or stay at home? So I'm okay with that. But I also know that, like, you know, with the theater industry hurting because of streaming, I, I it blows my mind how much they don't focus on the experience, because I feel like they don't know how, or they're not worried about it anymore. Because here's
They
an
didn't
example.
know how though. So what happened? That's the thing.
Well, I think, number one, most studios shot themselves in the foot. Streaming allows such a great alternative, but it's too good. Because when you're home, you can do whatever the fuck you like. Doing that shit in the theater, people still do, but it's crass. I mean, I see people like take off their fucking shoes and still play on their phone during the movie. And for my money, I'm like, why the fuck did you show up? Why are you
Mhm.
here?
Right.
You could have done this at home. But
Exactly.
I think a lot of these theater chains are more caught up on the razzle dazzle and not the experience. You know, the experience is what sold it for us as people who love movies back then. It shouldn't
Right.
be any different now. And I love some of the silly shit they have out, like the popcorn buckets
Mhm.
and all that stuff. But another thing is too is that one chain wants to start doing pickleball courts. Now there was a time at a lot of theaters you spent the day there.
Right.
Like there was a there, and this is we're talking 2 screens, not like now where it's
Mhm.
get them in, get them out.
Right.
There was a time where they played music and they had actual restaurants, not fast food,
Mhm.
restaurants.
Yeah.
And there was something about creating the experience there. People used to wear suits to go to the movies. Like, it's insane to think about how much that has changed, because it's all become overly processed and just fast foodized. I guess that's the word.
Mhm.
So the their focus is in a place that doesn't equate for me, I guess is the best way to put it. Because, you know, the popcorn buckets and the cups, those are cute, those are fun. Okay. Now, I think I sent you this, but for those who might have looked into this,
Mhm.
Fantastic Four is coming out in like 3 weeks, and I'm excited for it. I have wanted a good Fantastic Four movie for a long time, and we hope this is it. As part of the promotion for this, they've decided to make popcorn buckets that look like Galactus's
Mhm.
head that has lights on it. Because yeah, you want something with lights on it in a dark fucking theater. That's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, we just talked about it. We already have enough problems with that shit. And it's like, well, here's your popcorn bucket with lights on it. You're gonna fucking date? Yeah, that's cool. No, stop it.
No, we don't want that.
This
I,
popcorn bucket is $80 fucking.
oh my. See, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
$80 fucking. I will repeat myself just in
Mhm.
case that didn't sink in.
Yes.
80 fucking dollars. That is mind blowing to me. That is why, like, I see this stuff and I'm like, I can't buy that. And it's not just, it's twofold. One, the price, and two, it's like most crap we buy. For about 10 minutes, we're jaded with it, and then we put it somewhere and it collects dust. And then either we move, renovate, or die. And then it's rediscovered. And it's like, oh, cool, we had that. And it's like, yeah. Especially for something like a popcorn bucket, where you're literally like, why? Like, did we not spend enough for popcorn? Did we not spend enough for soda pop? Do you really have to get us by the short and curlies? And
Yeah.
granted, I mean, I don't think a ton of people will buy it, but we know somebody will. And I love the fact that they do this stuff now. And granted, novelty popcorn buckets aren't exactly new, but they started shaping them like things, but seems like recently. But I feel like it's all a product of like the Dune 2 bucket, where people were like, hey, can I fuck my popcorn bucket? And it's like, don't fuck your popcorn bucket.
Mhm.
With or without popcorn.
Exactly. Yep.
Don't fuck your popcorn bucket. Because one, that's
Mhm.
not what it's there for. Two, at least one of you is going to go to the fucking ER for this. I guarantee it.
Mhm.
where you have to look an ER doctor in the eye when he asks you the age-old question, so tell me what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the shit I live for.
Mm-hmm.
They actually have to fucking explain, some jackhole, with snot in his nose and jizz down his leg going, I tried to fuck my popcorn bucket. And I did it. I did a Dune popcorn bucket fuck too. I sat there and I fucked it and I went, So if you fuck without rhythm, then it won't attract the worm. If you fuck without rhythm, you'll never learn.
I can't breathe. Holy shit. God damn it.
Fear is the mind killer, and your popcorn bucket is the dick fucker. Yeah, we got it. We got it, pal.
But okay. There was something that I saw because like I said, and I told you off air, and I've been sharing reviews because I just write a few words sometimes about some of these movies that I'm watching now that I'm documenting my film love again.
Right.
But I saw a review for Jurassic World Rebirth that someone wrote on Letterboxd, and I was going to ask you about it but then I realized after your movie theater debacle, you probably don't remember enough about the half that you saw that
Well,
you probably wouldn't be able to gauge.
Well, here's the funny thing. From what I recall of what I saw, I was really enjoying it.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of Spielbergian aspects. You can tell that they are really playing kind of the notion of like what's important and what's not, and they do play a bit of the father with kids thing, or like, that kind of situation. From what I saw, I was actually enjoying myself, but it was hard to be dialed in, and I couldn't. I really couldn't get there.
Well, this person, I mean, I would assume that he's dialed in. Maybe he's an idiot. I don't know. But I read this and I was like, is ScarJo going to be enough to save Jurassic World? I don't know. It's the headline for this is dinosaurs, but boring.
Well, I can honestly say I was never bored from what I did see. I will say, and granted, this is a fractured experience, so
yes,
I can only give you what I got out of it, which wasn't the full experience. So I admit that. The trick with ScarJo in it is that she's ScarJo, and a lot of actresses, we go for them. I'd mentioned before, I met her in 2008. She was hot then, she's hot now. ScarJo's hot, period.
Yes.
Now, she is supposed to be playing a mercenary, a merc.
Okay. Right.
Now, this is no knock on women in combat situations, women in the military. For me, it'll always be brothers and sisters, and I've had both brothers and sisters get my back out there. But because it's ScarJo, and because she doesn't seem to handle herself like somebody who's been in combat. You have a little trouble distilling that down, where you're like, okay, so she's supposed to be the military hard ass, and she doesn't have to be covered in tats or anything like that, or piercings or whatever, but she comes off like a dentist who goes on safari. It's like, well, let me shoot a lion. Oh, the one that's already limping. The one with 3 legs, 1 eye, no nuts, named Lucky, like that. You're taking down an apex fucking predator like that. Yeah, you might as well just use a fucking toothpick. Just done.
You mean Michael Myers in Halloween Kills an apex predator?
Yeah, exactly. She doesn't come off with that type of what's the word? She doesn't come off with that type of like bravado. She doesn't come off with that type who has been in situations that can handle herself. And it's not a knock against her, but it's also a case of she has said personally, she has wanted to be part of this franchise for a while. And because now they're trying to move away from the old stuff, obviously Universal, and I mean, that tracks, they are going to try to plug in names that are going to get asses in seats. And ScarJo is obviously one of the most recognizable figures, especially action figures, in movies. So her being in that was just kind of like, oh, okay. Everybody else was more on point. There was one particular piece that got me. And I love when movies get me, especially when you do a jump scare and you do it right. And you don't do a jump scare with music to fuck with the audience. You just do it cold. And you go. There was one scene that hit me like that. And I was like, oh, fuck. And this is between all the madness I talked about last night.
Or that's even that you could still.
But that tells you something. Like, even through all that shit and shenanigans, like, I watched that and I went, oh, fuck, that got me. And even the audience was like, oh, shit. So for my money, it was very much a case of like, okay, let's go with this, because the beats are there for like a Spielberg-esque movie, and not Fallen Kingdom, which that director really was like, I want to be Spielberg when I grow up kind of deal. Like that there was a lot of that where you're like, yeah, we get it. Like you're doing Jurassic Park or Jurassic World. And of course, all the filmmakers say the same fucking thing, We want to pay homage. We want to pay homage to Spielberg. Yeah, got it. He knows. Fuck, he knows, okay? Stevie knows.
Yeah, it's like,
From what I got out of it, I enjoyed it. But once again, this is a half experience. And a lot of that is obviously because of what occurred last night. But it was also a case of, if you're not dialed in, then what's the point? That's why we left when we did.
Right. Yeah.
Because there was so much of that going on. And you just have these space cadet fucking parents. And I had, when my kids were growing up, there was a couple times where they sat in front of us and there were people next to them, and we would tell them, it's like, they're here to watch the movie, but we're here to be like, we're in spitting distance, we can handle them. Because yeah, you may be in a theater, but people are fucking crazy. I would not want to be 5 rows down from my own kid unless I had to. I would just pick another showing.
Right. Yeah, at that point, that.
And another thing for me is, I get that when you have kids, the last thing you want is the ideal of your world changing. Because everybody does it.
Right.
Nothing's going to be different. I'm going to be the same. I'm going to go do this and I'm going to go do that, and nothing's going to change. And so on and so forth. Look, folks, no matter what, your life has changed. You may not want to admit it. You may not want to cop to that fact, but you have another human you're responsible for that wasn't always there. Your life fundamentally has in fact changed. And it's a matter of priorities. And I had times where the kids were really small and tried taking them to a movie and they made noise and we left. We were like, yeah, it's just not happening. And you kind of just have to accept that fact. Not to mention, if you're in a crowded theater and there's other people there, you're not going to get the full experience, especially because these people sat like five fucking rows away.
Right.
It was absolutely maddening because I'm like, God, I'm like, seriously, folks? Now, part of the solution, at least for me, is there's a theater kind of the opposite way of us. Now, we had been there a couple times recently, 3 or 4. And what has happened, this is the best way to put it. So it's more of a luxury theater. Obviously, the tickets are going to cost a little more. But the beauty of it is that the seats are separated. So you have the theater, and then instead of like a door on one side and then like an exit on the other, you have 2 doors that go straight down, and then you have seats that are like 2, and then there's like a break in between, and your neighbor is maybe like 10 feet away. So you have breaks. This is more of the bourgeois day theater. And I can tell you by going there, like the clientele is definitely more bougie. The theater we usually go to has become more I hate to use the term ghetto, but they have cops out there all the time and people get very unruly. I've seen situations where like cops are like taking statements because people are getting stupid. And it's like, yep, ghetto land returns. The other theater is definitely more, it's definitely more aimed to a certain clientele. It feels that way. It feels less crowded. It's considered luxury seats or luxury theater, and they are. Like it's a very nice place. It's a little more, but now it makes the case for it's like, okay, I've gone to this one chain, had a membership with them for several years, and then it's like, do I want to continue? Because it's frustrating to think about. Like I've had more experiences at the ghetto theater than the nice theater, but it is becoming increasingly noticeable that there's more shit instances with the shit theater.
Oh, of course.
Kind of makes well, and part of it too is that you also have to look at it just sheer size. Like, okay, so the luxury theater has 8 screens. The ghetto theater has 15.
So there we go.
So that's another thing to kind of keep in mind, par for the course, where it's not exactly it's not exactly a more condensed, refined space. It is going to be more people and more assholes and more people acting like assholes, to where you've removed the experience.
Right.
So it's a bit of a quandary. Like it's a little unfortunate to kind of think that way, but I mean, I kind of had to think about it a little bit after the fact, but that situation really hit me harder than I thought. And a lot of it was just simply because, having to leave knowing that and it's not even the money, knowing what I wanted out of that experience just was not going to happen. And it
Right.
was more my issue to deal with, not knocking the management, not knocking the theater chain. But obviously, there's only so much he can do, only so much we can do. But we felt it upon ourselves that we had to leave.
Yeah.
And not trying to compare that we're better than anyone, but it's like we're trying to watch the movie, not watch the movie and rail in like 3 children.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was so frustrating, and it still is. And the crazy thing is those fucking chuckleheads being so out of their own heads and just being selfish, where it's like, I'm going to watch this. They probably left the theater. Like, I'm sitting here going on about it. They left the theater and didn't even fucking think about it again. And we're just like, yeah, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they don't, you know what I mean? They don't care. They didn't lose anything.
Nope.
They still got to watch it. I mean, but did they really? I mean, because I'm sure like the theater was, like you said, pretty packed. So
It was almost completely sold out.
now I wonder if anyone else went to the manager after it was over and asked for a refund.
They might have, but the kicker is if you've sat through the whole thing, and I wasn't looking for a refund at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when we left, we weren't even going to look for him. We were like, fuck it, we're out.
Right.
And he was very nice. Like, he refunded our money. He didn't have to do that, but he did. But it also goes back to the ideal of like, it also goes back to the ideal of, is it worth it? Is it worth it? I mean, a free movie under those circumstances, obviously we have to take it. And we seem to have more successes on Sunday. So I think we're going to try again Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
But it also begs the long-term question where I was like, is this fucking worth it? I don't know. And we can try the other theater, but people are assholes no matter where you go. But that's what really bugs me about this, is that how much that situation has chapped my ass and kind of ruined going to the movies for me. Especially when, a lot of modern movies don't really do it for me. And I don't, like, if I don't need to leave, and this has got to be like the old curmudgeon me talking. If I don't need to leave, I'm not gonna. Like, I'm just so over dealing with all of that shit.
Welcome to my world. I feel that. I feel that. Dude, I hate going to the movies Like, I used to love it when I was a kid, but I hate it now. And when I was a kid, I used to go every week for many, many, many years. And now it's just like, you know what? Back in those days, there was like a 7 month release window.
Yeah.
So you either saw it in the theater or you were waiting months to see it.
Oh, and if
No.
not more, because there was a time, especially in certain areas, and people forget, like, the concept of a megaplex
Mhm.
is, I don't want to say it's new, but you look at the history of film or the film industry, just over 100 years, theaters used to really be 1 or 2 screens. It was not a case of like, let's pack their asses in here and get them the fuck out. Once again, you spent the day there. You took in the day and you relaxed. People dressed up to go to the movies. And they used to play movies in some cases for like close to a year in a theater.
Mhm.
That was not unheard of for movies to play for an entire year. The last movie I can think of that actually did that, probably intentionally, was Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction skipped around theaters, but it played for like a year in movie theaters.
Yeah.
And I miss the ideal of that, where you're like, yeah, I really, I really wish there was a way to go back to that,
Yeah.
because once again, it goes back to like them wanting to put in pickleball. Stupid fucking game.
I don't understand who would
Let's
go to the
play
movie.
tennis, but less interesting. Got it. I mean, that's really what it is. It's basically like ping pong, but standing on the table, which is what kind of tennis is anyway. Yeah, just when I thought golf couldn't be any more obnoxious. Oh, here's pickleball. Like, what the fuck?
Mhm. That's
Um,
unbelievable.
it is, and it's so huge here when people are sitting there playing fucking pickleball and drinking their hard ciders. I'm like, fuck you. Like
Mhm.
that that really makes such a statement about this generation and why people are like, these motherfuckers get handed so much and they're still like, let me get my hibiscus lavender fucking cider and my fucking vape pen that smells like a combination of honeycomb and my mom's cooch, and I'll play fucking pickleball. Ugh. And it's like, guys, clean it up, man.
Oh god.
That's my favorite thing, especially in this state. People will try to like roll in hot rods, and then like they'll fucking blow their RoboCop dick vape pen. Is what it looks like to me. RoboCop's dick. Thank you for your cooperation. Dead or alive, I'm coming in you. I mean, you're coming with me.
Oh shit! I can't.
And then like they try to be all Billy Badass, and then like you smell the waft of like vape smoke, which number one
Oh,
doesn't look like regular smoke. It looks like they fucking summoned like a douchebag genie. But then like you smell it, and you're like, why the fuck do you have an $80,000 built up truck and it smells like fucking hibiscus lemon biscuit coming out of there? Like, guys, and especially considering vaping isn't much healthier. People are, and I've heard that people are like, oh, well, if you vape, it's better and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, you're still
There's still stuff
putting,
going into your lungs. What the
yes,
fuck?
you're still putting these foreign things into your body. You're still very much, inputting something manufactured, meant to be addictive into your body the way you are. You're not, I mean, it's kind of like regular and diet. Like, yeah, you take out the sugar, but now you have to put in the chemicals. So your body's going to be affected by it one way or another. And yes, the sugar may be processed, but you know where sugar comes from. I hate that fucking diet shit where they sit there and turn around and go natural flavors, and then next to it is like an ingredient that has like 7 Q's and 4 X's and like a number in it, and it's like it's
Yeah,
all
I don't
natural. I'm like,
understand
from what fucking planet? Not this one. I mean, I get we're tearing up this planet, and look, I have to say, I love saying this out loud because people are like, save the planet. The planet is fine. The planet will not be going anywhere. The planet has been here for billions of years and it's still doing its thing. Earth is doing Earth things.
Mhm.
It's the people and like the us who are fucked.
Right.
Where it is very much a case, and think about it, like other species that have lived here, like 90, it's estimated somewhere in the ballpark of 95 to 99% of all species in the history of the creation of the earth. If it was created by fucking Jesus, whoever, fucking Alanis Morissette, Tom Cruise, whoever the fuck did it,
Mhm.
99%
Mhm.
of anything that existed from that point till now is
Mhm.
gone. Extinct.
Yeah.
Gone. Bye-bye. The end of the dating game. Let's give the fucking species, let's give the Glarneck for fucking the big dating game kiss. And that's it. Now, I get this is about preservation. This has nothing to do with treating the planet better. This is to ensure that we don't have to fly to fucking Mars and go ruin that fucking planet. But the conceit that we put it back on the Earth to save it is fucking stupid. Because
I can agree.
a lot of our issues, once again, are self-imposed and created. Like we just talked about, that kid downstairs, the fucking mutant fat fuck who should be headlining a circus during Depression era, 1930, in the Dust Bowl. We do this stuff to ourselves through industry and other things, sure, but to put it back on the planet, like that needs saving? Like, no. You got it wrong. Planet will be fine. We're fucked. Pack your shit. Pack your silly putty. Pack your strap on. Pack your googly eyes and your fucking, propeller top cap. Pack your shit, folks. Go get a bag. Get a baggie. Get one of those little fucking cradle harness things where you fucking and pack your shit because we're fucking going. The Earth will still be chilling. Actually, and we learned this a little bit during the pandemic, that the Earth can be very self-healing as long as we're not fucking with it. We're all fucking gone. I promise you, the Earth will be chilling in no time. We, on the other hand, we'll be shaking off like a fucking case of crabs.
Pretty much. That's that's the. I mean, that's the way to. You
don't be Mr. Positivity.
Well, you say that, and I'm looking, and we're just over an hour in, and do you know that there's something missing tonight? Or there's someone missing tonight?
Yes, please. I didn't know where to bring that up, so if you want to take the lead on that, and I'm glad you did mention it, so we do address it, or I can address it. It's up to you.
Well, no, I mean, it doesn't matter either way. Like you can if you want to say, and I'll add to it or whichever. But
for those in this community, horror movies and stuff like that, who may know, we have shared it. We lost a really good friend just a couple days back, Morgan Welborn, who, I can say from what little I got to speak with him, because he was here for every show, and even before my time, every show. That he loved being a part. Like in many ways, he was very much a co-host. He didn't just, sit idly back. A lot of what he did was engage the conversation, his experience, and we loved piggybacking off of that because it brought something. I've said it before, and I know you would kind of piggyback that as well. I think that with this format being so almost in some ways formless until you give it form, he helped give it form for every episode he was a part of. And he was very much connected to this. Like anytime he would show up, regardless of if it was early on in the show or later in the show, he gave so much back to it. And he was someone, like I said, I only talked to a few times. I really wish I got to know more about him. I know that, he had made movies and was very much a horror fan, like so many of us, and had such a passion for it. And that's what made his part in this so great, because he spoke so passionately. When you love something as much as you do, good, you will speak passionately. Bad, you will speak very passionately. But everything he gave to this show and everything he did, and following projects he was working on and raising funds for, you have to have a level of investment. You know what I mean? To really chime in on certain things and be a part of it is not a case of, well, I guess I'll do this. I guess I'll do that. Yeah, I'm not trimming the hedges today. I guess I will do this. Sure, that's fine. No, he was very much a part of it. Every time he'd pop up, he, or,
Mhm.
it was something that helped make the show more of what it is, and not just with us. Anytime we have people, chime in any way, they bring something to it. But like I previously said, his in particular was something special because it was like having an additional host who gauged us. It wasn't just putting in his 2 cents. He would ask questions and want to give to the show and the conversation. And we could not be any more grateful for that. And definitely gone too soon. I know that he had been, he had got injured, and was it his hip, if I have that correct?
It was the hip because he was making that movie where he was actually going to start shooting it. He was on, location on his set.
Right.
And before they even got to start shooting something, I believe he fell and he broke his hip. And then I think he was sick. I mean, he had a cold, some sort. Well, he said it was a cold. Maybe it was something different. But I think last week he said that he was sick
Right.
when he was in, and then he left after a while because he said, he was going to get some rest or something. And then that movie that he was making, I had a remote role for it here, and I
Mhm.
actually just got this. Oh wait, no, that's a heating pad. I just got this tripod for my iPhone because
Mhm.
I was going to shoot my
That was going to be
scenes this weekend and send them off because
right.
he's starting another, like, finishing funds, or it was a funds for the feature film that he was
Right.
trying to raise, and he wanted some footage. So he asked me, he's like, "Can you get that to me by like the middle of July at the latest?" So I said, "Yeah, sure." So that was going to be this weekend, but and it's unfortunate. And my if you look at the show art, the picture that I used of myself
Mhm.
was a um one of the pictures that I took that that he used for promo stuff for the original Indiegogo thing or
Right.
whatever. So it's just sad because he really did have. I mean, I don't know if you've gotten a chance to see. I mean, any of his other work. He made he was big with this Helvira character, so he made a
Yes.
short film that was available.
I saw that.
And if you, yeah, and see, and that's he was very good with, like, doing visual effects with a very limited budget, and I really, that that stuck with me. Like, that really struck a chord that he was able to do that.
Right.
He did I'm gonna have to pull them out because I have them somewhere. He did, like, little, like, rabbit and red models of, like, graphics of, like a sexy rabbit, like sexy red rabbit figure that he made. I'm gonna have to dig those out and
Right.
maybe showcase them around a little more. But
That would be excellent. And it would just speak to, once again, especially when you make movies and you make it in a certain way, a certain budget, like, that's passion. Because people might be detoured, people might be like, yeah, I don't want to do that. Like, that's just too much headache. But if you love something and you love being a part of it, you're always going to throw your hat in. And that's what I got from the things I had seen from him, but also had gotten from just his part of Rabbit and Red Radio, and even when he was doing like the raising funds for it, like I made sure to share it and be like,
Mhm.
it's when you do stuff like that, it's supposed to be about love. There are people who do things like that and they want to prove something. But I knew, like, from what little I talked to him and just what he did, like, I knew right off the jump, it was like, no, this guy loves doing this stuff. And sometimes that love can be easier said than done, because I'm sure there were days where it was like either one or the other, where it was like, okay, I'm excited, this is great. And then there were some days it was like, fuck this, I'm going to kick over the tripod, I'm going to fucking throw the sets out or burn them or whatever. But I always got the distinct feel from talking to him and what have you. Like, I really got the distinct kind of feel that he did it for love. He did it because it was something he wanted to be doing. And obviously, like any filmmaker, you want people to enjoy it. But I know there are many filmmakers who it's like, yeah, you do the best you can and you want people to like it, be on the same page, enjoy the same themes, but also as a creator and an artist, you have to stand back and go, yeah, I did that. You know, even if like 20 years down the line, you were to look at it and go, yeah, that was a different time, or I was this, or I was that, many, many things we do career wise, artistry wise, are kind of stamps of our journey. But I think ultimately you still have to have that love. And he had love for this podcast. He had love for like the genre and what he gave to it and just being a part of it. And that is the thing that will definitely stick out most in my mind for him. Um, and yeah, I know this is going to sound strange, but it was not necessarily clockwork, because like I said, sometimes it'd be the beginning, sometimes it'd be in the middle, but there's no comment from him, and I feel that, like, I'm looking over at it and there's nothing from him, and that alone is an empty space in such a way where it's like, yeah, you know we we expect in the back of our hands, we would still want and obviously expect that, and that's not going to be the case again. um and I think it's just a reminder that it's all too short, it's all a ride. Cherish it and enjoy it at the same time, which can be hard, especially in the rigmarole of our lives, especially when we have, a world that just seems to be going in a direction that nobody can predict at this point. And, you know, and enjoy what you can get out of it, because nothing is promised. Tomorrow will never be promised. And you got to find a way to make good with it, and honor those people. Like, I love how much he loved the genre, so I keep that in mind. When people make an impact on us, I think it's important to carry that, because obviously, and as hokey as this may sound, we don't forget them that way. Especially when, like, I'm one of those people, like, I'll watch something maybe a person didn't like if they've passed, and I'm like, yeah, if they were here right now, they would say that's how you keep them in your heart. When you know things about that, like them, and you have those moments of, if they were here right now, like, I mean, I do that with my parents all the time. Like, what was it? I was watching something and they were crapping on Days of Thunder, and my father was a huge NASCAR fan for some reason. And I still have that. Wow, if he was here, he would freaking lose his lid over that. And there's that part of me where it's like, yeah, I know he's not here, but I also know it's like, if he was, what he would think. So I think that's always important. when we lose someone that's near and dear to our hearts, that um, we find a way to keep them close to us, even in the midst of um, not seeing them anymore, and knowing that we hope somewhere, wherever they may be, obviously I'm not going to get into that conversation, but we want to keep people close to us. We always want to feel that. So, I have to say that, he made an impact on everything we do here, and certainly made an impact on us and me. Um, he is sorely missed and will be sorely missed. There's no question to that.
Definitely, and it's just it's I mean, because it wasn't even just this. There's every show that had aired on this network that was live. He was there for it, and I mean
Yeah,
that's something that I'll remember that, and I cherish that. And he really was just you know a great, decent human being, and there's not really too many of those people, kind of people left in this world today.
yeah, and once again, kind of going back to like keeping them in your heart. When you think of people like how you just kind of mentioned, you want to be able to carry that with you.
Mhm.
I think, when because there are times where we have situations where we're like, if, if I could just bring myself to do this, but then you also think about other people being kinder, or turning the other cheek, or being better or smart about it, and you like, yeah, that's the way to go. And I think that's the impact of lessons and the impact of presence that people make on us. So Morgan, and to his family, you know, we we cannot tell you how sorry we are, and how much, our deepest condolences for your loss. Definitely gone too soon, and it is a stark reminder of, we the only promise we'll ever have about tomorrow is that tomorrow isn't promised. And I know that sounds kind of fortune cookie, but it's true. I mean, there it's it's important to plan and live your life, of course, but also, nobody ever knows. You know, nobody knows. It's When it's time, and I think all you can ever hope is that you try to live by right by yourself, and by those you loved around you. And I know some people, it's like, when I'm gone, I'm gone, and it's like, yeah, but impact can be both positive and negative. Morgan's was all positive, definitely here at the show. But when you look back on certain people, you don't want to have to mince words. We look back on some people and we're like, God, I miss them. And then we look back on some people and it's like, damn, I wish I could miss them. Um, and that's a lot to struggle with. What's so great about Morgan, especially the impact here, definitely the impact he made on me, I never have to struggle with that. And it's unfortunate because my time with him was limited, compared to others. So I didn't get to know him as well as I would have liked. But just the time here, and what little I spoke to him and he reached out to me, I knew he was definitely one of the good ones. And these days, it feels like we've got a lot less good ones than we used to. So he will definitely be missed, and then some.
Yeah, that's. Oof. I should have packed in a break because
I know that
yeah, I should have, but
it and
it's
sometimes with this stuff, it gets a bit heavy. But I also know that I think we'd be amiss, regardless of when we talked about it in the show, we'd be amiss not to say something,
yeah, no, I wanted
because
to make sure that
Yeah, especially and once again, like he a little or a lot, like he was such a presence. And to talk about people in that sense, regardless of like when we necessarily did it in the show, would still be a lot. Like I still think we'd be like, ooh, like this one kind of sticks hard, and it's like, yeah, it's gonna, you know. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, we can take a bit of a break, or we can keep pushing. I know you didn't. I know you
Well,
didn't really pull the break.
yeah, no, I can, I can push forward because I'm sure what we'll talk about will just jettison me into another, you know,
Space. I get it.
yeah, I've had a wow, just like
Yeah, yeah.
it's been
It's. I'm glad you brought it up, but it's also a case of like to bring it up is to make it real. Like I
yeah. I mean, that's it. That's
I
it,
well,
and that's the thing.
I took a nap and you messaged me that, and I was like, "What? Like, is he playing with me?
Mhm.
What did I miss?" And I went to his page, and his brother had announced it, and that was, yeah. It is an unfortunate, surreal case when that does happen because it's a lot. Like you're like, wow, how, and you know, it it's when you read it or when it's announced or even when you see it, the mind is structured in a way where you can't just, oh yeah, that's not a thing. Like your mind very much is like, no, this is it. You gotta deal with this. Um,
And he
and this
never,
was no
he like
different.
never. Well, and he never wanted to do like video or
Right.
audio because he just wasn't like that wasn't him. But like for the Circus Satanicus, the latest film that he was working on,
Mhm.
he told me he's like he got a webcam because he was doing like virtual table reads with the cast.
Right.
So I said, I'm like, see, I'm like, that's good. I'm like, you have a webcam. I said, so when you feel comfortable, I can have you on Rabbit in Red. And he still didn't quite like say yes, but he didn't
Right.
say no either. So
Right.
I think
It was in a holding
I
pattern.
think we could have yeah, I think we could have worked on him and wiggled our way into getting him to actually come on here,
Well, I think
you
I had
know,
mentioned it on a
yeah.
couple shows too, where I was like, yeah, like when and I too was like, yeah, when you feel up to it, like when you feel like to sign off on it or feel up to it, the door was always open.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a shame that we'll never, because I really think that that would have been something, and I think eventually we would have gotten it. I really do.
I think we would have had. I think we would have had quite a blast, and the reason I say that is because y- you know, like I said, absolutely nice dude, but he felt reserved and shy to it. But in my mind, see, when people do stuff like that, and it takes them a bit of a nudge to push to get them out of their shell. It's
Mhm.
when they're out, and it's like, hey boys, like I
Mhm.
personally think that once he would have done it, this is just my thoughts, of course. Once he would have done it and like got out of there, got
Mhm.
there, I think
Yeah.
he would have. I think he would have blast. I had a blast. I think he would have jumped in with like both feet.
Mhm. No, I
So
think so. I think so.
Morgan, and I saw so many tributes and other pages that had kind of spoke of him and highlighted him. So to say that he is missed is putting it mildly. That there was a lot of people who chimed in and people who knew him, and it wasn't just a case of you know, oh that's unfortunate. There were a lot of people that were like knew him and knew who he was and what he was about, and was very much like, really him? Like you gotta take him. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely a blow of reality. And yeah, maybe you should have worked in a break, but I think we'll be okay. We'll press
Yeah.
through. I think you would have wanted that. I think, and I don't know how this works for a segue. I think because I didn't know. It's funny. So doing a bit of a segue, and once more, such a loss, and to his family, friends, the people who knew him so well and got to have him as part of their journey, a little or a lot. Um, the deepest of condolences, and then some. Um, but in a bit of an odd pivot, and I don't know where his stance was. And when I learned about your stance or lack thereof on this subject,
Hmm.
I was a little awestruck, and in a good way. And I say that because when people haven't seen certain things,
Hmm.
we all have kind of that. What do you mean you haven't seen this? Like what? Like you treat the person like they're a pig on roller skates. Like what's wrong with you?
Hmm.
Um, I was actually on a show twice. TV Travis's "What do you mean you haven't seen?" or "Wait, you haven't seen what?" And the concept of the show, it's two-way. Basically, a guest either introduces a movie he hasn't seen or vice versa. So I've been on there twice. The first one I did, and I both times I suggested it. The first one was No Escape with Ray Liotta, Ernie Hudson.
Ah, great film. I love that
Yes,
film.
he had
I
never
love it.
seen it, and he was blown away because I wouldn't say there was a lot of big ads for it, but it had a Sega Genesis game. Like people trying to really push this as I don't know if necessarily was to start like a franchise, but it had a Genesis game where you're like,
Yeah.
what? Wait, huh? So for a lot of people, it was a little bit like, okay.
Hmm.
Um, the other one was High Tension, which was a movie that I discovered while I was in Germany, and it was very much a case of like, what is this? What the hell? What am I watching?
Hmm.
What the fuck? Um, so that show, and he has other great guests, other great episodes. You guys get a chance, I highly recommend it. My episodes were awesome because I was fucking there, so of course they were great. But
Hmm.
as our artwork and title card may suggest, we're getting into Marvel, and you, good sir, were not exactly Marvel fluent, we'll say.
I had seen Iron Man, Iron Man 2, and then I was like, okay, so I saw those in the theater, and then after that, I hadn't seen any Marvel. Then when Paul Rudd became Ant Man, I was like, hmm, I'm conflicted here because I love Paul, but he's Ant Man, and Ant Man is Marvel. So does that mean that because I love Paul, that I must also love Ant Man by default? And I was like, how do we make this work? So I hadn't seen any of the Ant Man film. I watched the first one maybe 6 months ago, and I liked it. And I was like, but again, you know, Paul was in it, so obviously I'm watching it through rose-colored glasses, so to speak, because in my opinion, Paul has never made a bad movie. I'm sure that in many people's minds he's made stinkers, but in my mind he is God. He cannot make a bad film.
He's made a
So
couple rough ones.
in my head, and this is how fucked up I am mentally, there is no there is no actor
Your
better
words, not mine.
than Paul Rudd aside from Donald Pleasance. In my book, it's Donald Pleasance, Paul Rudd all day long. Those are the two two best actors in my opinion, and you're probably like, what the fuck are you thinking?
You
And
like
I'm
what you
like,
like.
I mean, so, but like, um, so then like, okay, so I told you like, being the caregiver for my mother and all, I haven't really watched movies in years. And I've always
Right.
loved film, but I haven't really watched movies. So, I was like, I guess like maybe the middle of like the end of May, I guess it
Mhm.
was. I was like, you know what? I'm going to start watching movies. And I literally started watching, I think like the first weekend that I did it, because I started it on like a Friday. Friday I watched 2 movies. Saturday I watched like 3 movies. And Sunday I watched 4 fucking movies. And I haven't watched that many movies. And before that, if I watched a movie like a month or a movie every 2 months, I was lucky. But
Right.
after watching like those movies like that, I was like in that weekend span, I was like, holy shit. I was like, movies are great. I was like, why did I stop watching them in the first place? I'm like, this is fucking brilliant. I'm like, because, and I think I told you, like, I watched, and then, like, the next weekend when I watched, like, Heretic on Max, and then when that
Mhm.
ended, it recommended Companion, and I was like,
Oh, I
and I went
love
through and
that
I
movie.
just kept watching, and I was like, so good. But then I was like, so I'm on Disney Plus, and I saw like Ant-Man and the Wasp, and I was like, another Ant-Man, another Paul movie that I have not seen yet. So I'm going to click it and I'm going to watch it. So I'm watching it. And keep in mind, like I said, so what I haven't I've seen nothing really at that point. So I don't know what the fuck I'm watching. They're talking about Cap and Ant-Man in Germany
Right.
and something about fucking Ant-Man doing something to help Cap and I'm like sitting there and I heard this and I'm like you motherfucker Captain America, you fucking made them arrest Paul and you violated his parole or whatever the fuck you did. I'm like, how fucking dare you? I hate you.
You
You
son
are
of a
a
bitch.
bastard superhero. I can't stand you. And it just made me like so angry. But I was like, and I didn't know like what was going on. I'm like, okay, so when did all this happen? And I'm going through and I'm going through. And then I talked to somebody and they're like, yeah, you don't understand. They're like, this is the MCU. I said, but they're on like phase like 7. And I'm like, I don't know if I can go back and watch all this shit now. And he's like, well, it's very simple. So I go on to fucking Disney Plus, and they have a nice little Marvel category. So I click
They
it.
sure do.
There's all these different categories within the Marvel, and I'm like, they break these movies down 6 ways from fucking Sunday.
They sure do.
I scrolled down to the MCU movie timeline, and I'm like, this is what I'm doing. I get it. We're starting. So, um, okay, so today's Thursday. So
Correct.
Monday, I watched Captain America. That's number one in the first Avengers, number one in the chronology. So I'm like, okay. And I watched it, and I was like, I was like, he's a little like pissy ant, like weaselly type, like nerdy type person. I'm like, and he became Captain America? I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, if he can be Captain America, then I can be Captain Crippled America. That's going to be my new title. I'm going to be Captain Crippled America. So I watched
That's
that. And I was
official.
like, right. Captain Crippled America. That's me. And I was like, hmm. So then I said, because, we talked about that we were going to cover this, and I'm like, now within I wanted to get through the first 7 movies at least because that would have been, you know, up up through the first Avengers movie, but I didn't get that far. Um,
Right.
Tuesday I watched. The fuck did I watch Tuesday? Tuesday I watched. I think. Oh no, wait. Wednesday I watched Captain Marvel, and is that what it is? Captain Marvel? Yeah, I
Yes, with Brie
Captain.
Larson.
Yeah, I watched Captain Marvel. I watched Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2. And I was like, I mean, and that was like pretty much back to back. I was like, by the time they were over, I was like all in the Marvel zone. I was like, holy fuck. I'm like, I actually understand what is kind of going on. Like, so these are all origin movies. So you're kind of like seeing how the people come to be. I'm like, this is fucking, I'm like, this is telling me a story. And I never knew this story existed. Now I know it exists. Wow. I like, my mind was like blown. I was like, so this is Marvel and this is what it is. And then I look and I see how far down the line it takes us to get to Ant-Man. And I'm like,
I'm
mm,
like, holy shit.
yeah, I'm like, but if I could make it through these four, if dude, if I could sit down and watch fucking 3 fucking Marvel movies fucking back to back. Mind you, I was not sitting the entire time. I have a
Right.
stepper that I was like stepping on through
Right.
half of the movies, so I'm not like, so I'm like keeping the circulation going, so I'm not losing limbs or some shit like that. Um, you know, but yeah, I mean, I feel like a whole new world has opened up for like me just because it's brilliant. Look at it. Look at all these movies.
Mhm.
So listen to me. After watching Iron Man 2, because you've seen all of Marvel. I think you've seen them all, haven't you?
I've seen, okay, so I have seen most of the Marvel movies
Mhm.
and majority, not a vast majority, but majority, a good chunk of the TV shows. And how do I put it? In the case of Marvel, so you're still working towards, you're still working your way, you know, to a certain point with them.
Yes, I'm gonna
And
get through them, or at least as many as are on Disney Plus at this point.
and you know, there was a time, and I still enjoy Marvel very much. And
Mhm.
even the ones I don't have the biggest expectations of,
Mhm.
I will still happily go to the theater. But I remember, and yes, there are different phases of Marvel, you know, one, two, three, and all that. But for me, the phases have
Mhm.
always gone, you know, before Endgame and after Endgame. And that's kind of where I see it. And the only reason why I say that is because you had a lot of talent that was very specific. I'm not going to get into spoilers because you haven't seen, you know, a
Oh
chunk of it
no,
yet.
you have to spoil something for me, but we'll
I
get there.
cannot. I don't
No,
want
you have
to.
no, you have to because you spoiling it will constitute whether I rush in a certain direction through these or I take my sweet ass time.
I say take your time, but know three things. One,
Okay.
not all not all projects were created equal. And a lot of that has to do with a certain degree of talent that left or stopped and then came back, James Gunn being one of them.
Mhm.
You had you have this huge disconnect between the two. And it's glaring. And part of that is because you have characters that came back that shouldn't have.
Right.
You have extensions of things that don't really add up and kind of go against a certain integrity of the storytelling. Because I think you might agree, I think you might see it, that Marvel held on to certain things too long. When it comes to some of these franchise points. Because there are some actors and actresses who left and then came back. But it's weird to think how much they're trying to like live in nostalgia. And when Marvel hit the ground running, especially when you get to Avengers, and you're like, oh, so you guys are going to do a cinematic universe with these characters that wouldn't exactly cross paths unless you were making something bigger or you gave them their own movie. And in some cases, it was both. But there is a very glaring fracture between Endgame before, from the first Iron Man in 2008 to Endgame, and then thereafter. And a lot of that has to do with nostalgia and trying to expand something, but not keep the key players involved.
Right. Well,
and, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying I know of something that happens in one of, because I mean I've already had it spoiled for me in some way, shape, or form. Because there were times where like I was like, I'm never watching Marvel. I don't care what happens, blah 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 blah, blah, and so people had told me. But now that I'm like into it and that I kind of like love it to an extent, I'm gonna tell you something.
Okay.
All right, there's two things. Two things. Number one, when I was watching fucking Iron Man 2 yesterday.
Okay.
And ScarJo showed up. I was like, now keep in mind, I saw Iron Man 2 in the theater in 2010 when it was initially released.
Right.
And I was like, but I didn't realize that she was Black Widow because I'm stupid. I didn't realize it. So when she popped up in Iron Man 2 yesterday, and this is my first time seeing it since 2010, I was like, when the fuck was when did she come into Iron Man? My mind was blown. I was like, where
You're
did
like,
you
what?
come from? I was like, you're Black Widow. You're supposed to be over here. I said, don't you come later? And then I was like, but wait a minute. I'm like, I'm not watching the phases. I'm watching it how they play out chronologically. Because,
Right.
it like what I'm watching, you see fucking the first Avenger is 2011, and then you see Captain Marvel, which is 2019. And it's like I'm watching that and I'm like, Jesus, now we're doing time jumps. I'm like,
Yes.
I don't know what I'm doing. And then it was explained to me that you're not watching the phases, you idiot. You're watching them in chronological order as to like how they take place like within the world. I'm like,
Yes.
okay, so now what happens if
Now, that's how they're supposed to
in
go. Do they always go that way? No.
well, what happens if in 20 years down the line they decide that they want to like do things that happened before before. And now it's like everything that I watched in sequence is null and void because we're jumping back even further. It's like then I feel like I'm gonna have to rewatch all of these again in the new chronological order. I don't
Yes.
like that
Well,
that's
and
messing with my head. I don't like it.
remember, some of these movies almost exist, almost,
Hmm.
to retcon certain things.
I've noticed everybody likes to retcon these days. I would like to retcon certain people because
Well, you don't. Well,
ugh,
and it gives opportunities. And granted, some of the retconning works, and you're like, okay, so that's how that happened. But when it's so on the nose, you're like, got it. Like some of the stuff, because you've seen Captain Marvel, right?
Yeah, that's the second one in my chronology.
Oh,
So yeah, I did see that with the Brie,
okay.
with the
So,
hot
do
one.
you
Yeah.
know the deal with the beeper?
Yes. Beeper
Okay.
I enjoy. Yes.
Now, I don't hate them retconning.
Mhm.
But the issue I have is that in some ways, it feels like they created an entire movie just to retcon that point.
And and that was another thing that I realized too that really fucked with my head. Okay? Because I'm seeing in Captain Marvel, I'm seeing Samuel L. Jackson with two eyes. And
Yeah.
then I see Samuel L. Jackson literally 2 hours later in a movie that was made in 2008 with an eye patch. And I'm like, my brain, it can't compute this. I felt like I was gonna short circuit because it just I'm like I'm like seeing Samuel L. Blind Samuel L. But seeing Samuel L. is older than blind Samuel. It's like this. I
Yes.
don't like.
And then they
See
had
all the
to
things that are going through my
and then they
brain.
had to
See,
engage in de-aging.
yeah, I can't. It's like don't get me wrong. I'm loving them and I'm enjoying them, but it's like I feel like it's a big elaborate mind fuck, and it's like they need to like rein it in because I'm gonna go crazy.
Yeah, well, and because some of this stuff is so scattered, and there was a time where they were really giving like Joss Whedon and like James Gunn and the Russo brothers the keys to the castle, and that was all fine. But I think Marvel expanded too far outside themselves, which was not a surprise that that
Mhm.
was going to happen
Right.
because and one thing I'll have to say, a little side note, is even with some of the oversaturation of some of these things between movies and TV and the things they've done,
Mm.
there are certain things that I cannot help but to go, wow, that is that is something that I just never expected, and yet here we are. Perfect example, and I'm pretty sure you haven't seen it yet, but the Moon Knight series.
No. No.
I was a Moon Knight fan from so long ago, and part of the allure was just, well, cool name, but also like the costume, and then getting into the lore of the character and him being kind of, almost like this Boba Fett popular, where it's like, well, who the hell is this guy?
Mhm.
And that's kind of the enjoyment, the fun, if you will. And as a kid, you hear about projects or you see these things, and you go, wouldn't that be cool if they did that? Wouldn't that be awesome
Mhm.
if they did this? Wouldn't it be cool if they went and tried this? And you kind of have this brain rift of like a mental what if, like a mental list of like, oh man, if they do that, that could be cool. If they give that a shot, that could be awesome. Like I'd love to see if they did that, yada yada yada. And DC as well as Marvel was no different, because there was a lot of cases of, man, if they did that, that'd be cool. Don't they know they've got a great character there? Don't they know they need to give this a try? Yada, yada, yada. And Moon Knight was like at the top of that list for me, where I was like, when they announced they were doing it, I was like, are you kidding? And it's a really good series. And the way they decided to handle certain things, you don't get to see as much Moon Knight as you would expect in a Moon Knight series. But I will say this, and this was for me the moment where like I was like, oh, they did it. Thank you. They did it. And basically at the end of the first episode, you know, and with it being the first episode, it's like, don't leave us hanging. Like, I don't care how much Moon Knight you show or don't show, but you better show something. Well, they did. And in and we're talking about 30 seconds left of a 25-minute episode. You get to see he's whooping a bad guy's ass, and he turns around and he walks into the camera, and it's Moon Knight. After seeing that, I went back so I could pause it and look and go, oh shit. Like, after 30, 35 plus years, regardless of what form it took, I got to see live action in somewhat real life Moon Knight. And it was one of those things where you just never expected. And it also kind of makes you realize that if they can work a character the right way, they can nail it. You know, Iron Man was a perfect example because, I mean, even with like Iron Man, Hulk, and Captain America, they're known to certain degrees. Well, known more now. But when they did their first 3 movies, really kicking up the Marvel Universe, they did not think like, oh, okay, well, this character is so popular, everybody has to know them. No, Iron Man was like known of, but not renowned. Like he is now, thanks to RDJ. Hulk was known because he had a TV series. Captain America had a weird TV series in the 70s. And then, I don't know if you know this, and I think this might pique your interest. So, before we got the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we got... there was a time, 70s, I think it was more towards the 80s, where Marvel was actually going bankrupt. They were losing money. They were losing. It was a time where they had gone too far. I think they had overextended, but basically, they were going bankrupt in the 80s. So, one of their strategies to combat this was to start selling off rights to some of their characters so that these studios or other companies can go make movies. And it would put money in their pocket 2 ways. Because 1, you're licensing the character, and 2, their name being on it. Now, the strategy did not work the way they had hoped. And part of the big reason why was, you know, Superman and Batman had Warner Brothers.
Right.
Marvel had whoever they could get.
Yeah, I have a feeling I know where this is going because I think I know.
Oh boy. So in this particular case with Marvel, they got New World Pictures.
Right.
Which was a studio from Roger Corman.
And that's what I was going to ask you. So, have you seen? They have copies of it floating around. Have you seen his Fantastic Four?
I have.
And how is it?
Ooh.
I don't like oof. I don't like oof.
It is, and look, if you scrounge up $2 to $3 million to make a movie just
Mhm.
because the movie was literally made just to retain rights.
Really? Yeah.
The whole point was just to say we made a movie.
Mhm.
There was nothing that suggested they were going to release it in a theater, let alone anybody see it. It was just a case of, hey, let's get this done so we can retain the rights. And then hopefully somewhere down the line, we can get a deal and make a deal that way and make a better movie somewhere down the road, which is what happened. Now, granted, the other existing Fantastic Fours, I wouldn't say are better, but they gave way to the one we have coming up. Having said that, this looks like what you would expect from a $3 million rushed project where they made it in Europe for little to
Mhm.
no money because they didn't have any, and they did their best.
I kind of want to see it now just to see. Because
it's
I've seen the other
it's what you
Fantastic
expect,
Fours.
especially from Roger Corbett. And here's what's hilarious. This is where you get a good laugh. So he made that Fantastic Four movie, or they made that Fantastic Four movie for
Right.
like $4 million. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then they turned around, and I can't remember if it was before or after. I think it was before. They made a Captain America movie for like $4 million. And that too was pretty rough.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember if that was Roger Corman or Cannon Group. Like Marvel was really like hurting for like liquid capital. They were hurting for money. So they were just like, here, go do something. Well, what do you want us to do? We don't fucking care. Just go do it. And they made that for about four or 5 million. Like these were obviously very small productions and not particularly expensive, lavish productions.
Right.
Now, they also made a Punisher with Dolph Lundgren
I saw that.
and Louis Gossett Jr.
Mm-hmm. I saw that.
That movie was made for like 10 million. And you're like, wait, this guy's just like a vigilante. Like, do you really have to spend that kind of money on that? But out of all the people who starred or were involved in those movies, he was like the biggest name.
Right.
And I remember being a huge Punisher fan of the comics as a kid, and my parents were like, well, he doesn't have superpowers. I'm like, well, he doesn't have to. Like, he's just fucking nuts and with guns.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of the people these days. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
But and here's something for the research team, if you will, or you researching.
Yep.
So they made these movies, and I think Punisher actually had a theatrical release. I think it was the only one that really
Right.
did. Okay.
Yeah.
And I've seen it several times, and it's not horrible. It was actually shot in Australia.
Cheap again, I'm sure there.
Yes. Yes. Because even now they have like big tax breaks where people go shoot stuff there. But and this is something where you're like, wait, what? So a couple years ago or so, we got a She-Hulk series. And it was something. I'm still not sure what they were trying to do there. Like I really don't. I don't know what the focus was or the aim. I think they were just caught up in the ideal of like, let's do She-Hulk.
Right.
Once again, I don't think they had a huge focus of what that plan was supposed to be. It's not there.
Right.
But in 1991, we were supposed to get a She-Hulk movie. I keep saying She-Girl, sorry. She-Hulk movie
Mm-hmm.
with Brigitte Nielsen as She-Hulk.
Hmm.
Now, you can Google box this, but there is promotional art that they put up in theaters
Oh, really?
before the movie was even started shooting.
Oh, wow.
That and this stuff exists, and it's like, wait, what? And it's like, yeah. The main reason why nothing ever came of it was because they ran out of money.
Right.
Yeah, New World Pictures went tits up. Almost all their productions, I think. I mean, they weren't made for a lot, and they certainly didn't make a lot. And keep in mind, this was also during home video, so even by home video standards, they couldn't really make a buck.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we didn't have streaming yet. Like, you had to go. You read about it, but it's like you had to go find this stuff. So they didn't really have the impact that you would have hoped, especially from like Roger Corman, who still obviously is film royalty.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's interesting that the missteps have led to the successes, and then even like the missteps now. And of course, one movie you have to put in that conversation is Blade, and
Oh,
that
yeah.
one will always boggle my mind in a good way. And the reason why I say that is because of all the movies they could try and maybe
Is
pull
this it?
off. Yes. Yeah. Apparently that wasn't the given supposed to be costume. That never really saw the light of day, but this was part of the promotional art where they were
You see,
promoting a
am I,
movie they hadn't even shot yet.
am I scrolling? Well, look at that. That's. I don't know if I. Wow.
Yep. Very
I
Power
can see.
Rangers.
Yeah. That's surprising. I
Yeah,
like that.
we
That
were we
was
were we were we were really, really close to that. Really close to that.
What the hell? Oh, wait. There we go.
There we are.
I hit the wrong button. Duh. Happens.
Yeah, New
Oh.
World had, as many would expect. So
Mhm.
the company itself actually went tits up in 97. It was started in 70.
Mhm.
And they had some notable titles. Okay, so first of all, they were behind Hellraiser
Right.
before it went to Miramax.
Mhm.
They did Heathers, which I still love.
Yeah. That's a great one.
Yeah.
That is a great one.
They did The Punisher. Oh, there's one they did that I love. So they did also Battle Beyond the Stars. But
Yeah, I know
uh-huh.
that.
But and they did, oh my god, they did Dead Heat.
Oh.
That fucking
Shit.
I love that
What?
bonkers ass movie. That movie was fucking crazy. But a movie they did that I love, House.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, right.
William Cat, the haunted house with the
Now, did they do 2 as w did they do
They did.
2 as well?
They
Yeah.
sure did.
I thought that they did. Yeah,
Yeah, looking at some
wow.
of their stuff, I'm like, wait, what? Yeah. But they did. So up until about 90. So there was about a 20-year, looks like there was about a 20-year window where they were making movies. And then slowly but surely, they started the downturn, and then they finally put up the for close sign or close sign in 97.
Mm-hmm.
But it was unique to kind of see, especially because they were one of the big ones. They weren't the only ones, but Canon Group was another one. But they were, because Canon Group also, and it's not obviously Marvel, but they bought the rights to do Masters of the Universe with Dolph Lundgren, and that move, oh my god.
That was yeah, that was another one, and I still can't believe Frank Langella was Skeletor. That's like, oh
Yes, and he's like the best part of the movie because
yeah,
he is deliciously reveling in the ridiculousness of that role. Like the whole time, he's just like, "Yep, they paid me really good for this." I mean, it's literally like where you go, "Oh, that has to be the reasoning why he would do it." And I think what's even funnier is Courtney Cox is in it.
oh shit, I forgot she was in
Uh-huh.
that. I
She
haven't
sure
seen it
is.
in years.
Yeah.
That was another one I went to the theater to see. Shit, I remember that.
Yeah, and then Canon Group, that was another one they made. Good God.
Mhm.
And they were another one where it was like, I mean, you kind of knew what you were in for
Mhm.
because they were another one that made. Well, you also got to remember, Canon Group is behind Life Force.
Right.
Yeah, looking at like some of the ones they did, like they had a couple of like on the level movies, and then a lot of it is like, what did they do? What is
Mhm.
this? And especially like the missing in action movies with Chuck Norris. That was, and they never lied about it. They were very much like, yes, this is direct ripoff of Rambo.
Mhm.
And my
Mhm.
dad was big into those movies like Invasion USA and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that was Marvel's way of trying to fix that issue. Was like just selling off rights. And a lot of those movies either never saw the light of day or was like a bootleg. And they are part of the trajectory, what became Marvel as a cinematic universe. But Blade is one that really sticks out in my mind to show what was possible once they got a certain point. Because up until Marvel did the deal that they did with Paramount and then turned around and got bought by Disney, because Paramount was the one that saw the value first, where it was like, okay, you guys can pull this off. Marvel had to exchange like the rights of characters to banks for some of their loans to get the first three movies made. And it's crazy to think about because when you talk about like a gamble, because I think the loans were like $550 million based off of
Mhm.
the value of these characters. So if they didn't pay the loans back and they don't get the rights back, they don't get the collateral back, if you will, then
Right.
some pencil pusher is going to own like fucking Spider-Man. Like it's crazy to think about that. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah. And
Um,
you know what? That's another thing that I was going to bring up because you brought up the difference, like with Paramount and Disney. And I mean, I don't know if you noticed this, but at least for me, and now that I mean, I didn't see all the Paramounts because I think that Paramount was with them through the first Avengers. I think,
yes,
like the first actual Avenger. Okay, so after watching, like, say Captain Marvel and oh, I think, and even the Ant Mans, and then watching Iron Man 1 and 2 again, it seemed to me like the Paramount Marvel is like more of like a grounded Marvel, whereas like Disney Marvel is more like um fantastical escapist
right.
entertainment.
Well, and another thing you got to think of too, because you had Captain America, you had Thor, and then you had Iron Man. But
Mhm.
also, same year, same summer movie season,
Mhm.
because part of that selling of the rights, Universal picked up the rights to Hulk.
Really?
So
Oh,
if
yeah,
you
that's right,
watch,
they did.
yes, and what's funny is it's almost kind of out of place, yet in place, is the Edward Norton Incredible Hulk movie, where that ties in because you have a Tony Stark cameo at the end of it.
Ah, yeah, Hulk is next on the I think that's next on the
Now,
MCU list.
Hulk or Incredible Hulk, because talk about two wildly different movies. Now, the first one with Eric Bana doesn't
Yeah,
play
that one's
into
not on
the
there.
no, and that I love okay, I love existential comic book movies, but they are few and far between, and it is not a given that you're going to pull it off.
Right.
And a lot of that comes back to whether or not you can stick the landing. Now, in the case of that Hulk movie, and what's even funnier about it is that was directed by Ang Lee.
Mhm.
And that came, I think he actually did that. That followed Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Mhm.
And he took he took that character in such a direction to
Mhm.
where you're like, where is this going?
Mhm.
Because I'm gonna spoil it for you a little bit, but
That's fine.
this is the part in the movie, honestly, where you're like, you're either gonna still be engaged or you're not.
Mhm.
Gamma radiated radioactive poodles.
Hmm.
The dad, Bruce Banner's dad, because there was a storyline where uh, Bruce Banner was abused as a child, and the father actually experimented on him with the radiation, but also with the abuse. So the Hulk was treated, and still kind of is, as like a type as like a case of schizophrenia, if you will, or
Right.
dissociative personality disorder, whatever they call it now. I call it schizophrenia. Okay, that's the word.
Mhm.
That's the way the character was treated between the two. You know, it was almost like Marvel Fight Club, if you will. And I always love that take because I think we all struggle with different sides of ourselves, even if they're not fully
Mhm.
encapsulated into what would say one person or anything to that effect. It's very much a case of just trying to look at, sides of us, encompassing or not encompassing. But they took that and then and I don't know if it's because they had a big effects budget or whatever the case, because I think that movie cost like 160 million.
Mhm.
And it's this weird existential type of you're not my father kind of deal. Like it plays really weird. Like some parts work and then some parts are like, what what were you doing? What was the what? Huh? What are you doing? And then fast
Mhm.
forward to the Edward Norton one, and that's when they were like, okay, let's start that pivot to the Marvel universe. And it's funny because I think they all thought that like Universal, Paramount, like they were going to stay in it because they're the ones that really saw the value. Marvel themselves, of course, they had to finance a lot of this stuff, but it is still very much a case of like, okay, can we really pull this off? Because they didn't know. I mean, if you look back behind the scenes stuff for Iron Man, especially, there was obviously superhero movies that had come before, but to make something that felt standalone but ended up being super immersive that was going to carry over, They didn't. They had no fucking clue if that was going to work.
Right.
They had no clue. They didn't. They couldn't calculate it. And you and I both know that most projects, especially when you start the ground up like that, it's all a wild ass guess. It's all a wag.
Right. Oh, totally.
And this was no different, you know. And Paramount, obviously, they were the ones that really saw the value there. In the case of that jumping the ship and going to Disney, it wasn't. I think it felt more grounded because we were seeing the seeds being laid, and we hadn't gotten to that point yet where you had the Avengers, where it was like, okay, so this thing's really going to blow up. But what I really enjoyed about those first three, even with the amount of effects and stuff, it still felt very much like Blade. Because I think the best comic book movies, yes, it's great to see the effects and the feats of strength and the action. But the best ones really take the time to focus on the character, to really complete the character. And I think it's very tricky to do that because you have to find the dichotomy within the balance, because you're not, it's kind of like Sam Raimi's, and this is one of the ones that I love, where they really kind of look at that one similar to the Christopher Reeve Superman. And the reason is because even with all the action and stuff, they spend a lot of time with the character, because sooner or later in some movie, there's always going to be a storyline that pushes, are they the same? Does it take one to be the other, or vice versa, and take away from another's identity? Or are they truly of the same thing? And of course, the answer is always, well, of course, it takes one to be the other, but they know that. So in that knowledge, you know, you can't have Clark Kent without Superman, and vice versa. But of course, Clark Kent as a character, this isn't Kill Bill 2, but I think it's perfect, where, you know, Clark is clumsy and klutzy and not together and kind of enfeebled. And because Superman's an alien, even if it feels satirical, that's how he sees humans. So that's what he projects as part of his disguise. But most of those movies really focus on the character. They make sure to set up well enough in the quiet moments so the action beats carry over, and when they make certain decisions, it's like, okay, that's what they would do. That defines the journey or the arc, especially in Iron Man. Like, the ideal of that arc, you know, in the actual comics, that arc is not a couple hours. That arc is like years and several issues. So to set that up in one movie and pull it off fairly well, pretty impressive when you stop and think about it. And I always go back to Blade, because Blade is the weird cousin that actually works out. And I say that because nobody saw it coming. And you had Wesley Snipes involved, but like, when you look at all the other ones they tried with names that both some audiences, but definitely comic book types, were like, oh, that, I know who that is. That's the guy. That's fucking right there. It's fucking awesome. Blade was always like a D-list character. He was never in the spotlight. Like, he was part of more of the horror comics, like Morbius and stuff like that. He was never like the center of attention. So for somebody to write a screenplay, come to the conclusion of, yeah, that's it. And that obviously has a lot of action. But once again, that kind of goes to how they set it up, kind of filling in the character and the casting, because they've tried making a new Blade and they just can't get it off the ground. And
noticed. It's
You have Wesley Snipes, who is still essentially Blade.
yeah.
And honestly, like, that first one is such a great time. It plays like a fun action romp, bit of a B movie. You can see a bit of the lack of budget there.
Hmm.
There's a little bit of that where you're like, and especially during the time too, in the mid '90s, where you're like, okay, I get it, I get it, I get it, I get it. Um, but considering how good he was with the character and how much he committed, still pays off. I watched the first one again about a month ago, and you still watch that performance, and some motherfucker's always trying to ice skate uphill, you know.
Hmm.
Like when the cops shoot him in the hospital. Motherfuckers, you out your goddamn mind?
Yep. Yeah, I gotta watch that again. It's been a while since I've seen that. It's definitely been a minute.
um, um, and then somewhere in between, they realized, like, even with like the Spider-Mans, because that was obviously Columbia. It took Marvel a long time to bring everybody back to the ranch, and I was just, and going forward, kind of considering where you're at with the Marvel universe.
Yes.
Once again, they're not all great. And in some of them, good is good enough. And some of the best ones are not the ones that some of the best ones are not the bigger of the whole. Because for some people, it all feels super connected, where you have to do, it has to be this, and it has to be that, and it has to be this. And it's like, no, because the Guardians of the Galaxy, like, they're in other Marvel projects.
Hmm.
But their 3 movies kind of exist on their own. And that is actually a really good thing.
Hmm.
It is I think it's helped their storytelling and characterization as a whole, because it has not been, oh, well, we have to plug him here, we have to plug him there. They've done that, but that doesn't happen in their movies.
Right.
Their 3 movies, volumes 1, 2, and 3, they exist on their own. Like, those adventures are centralized.
So so it's like they are like truly kind of separate from everything else.
Well,
I, I
especially theirs. That's
Mhm.
one thing that works really well for them. Where I personally was like, okay, good job. Like,
Right.
because one thing you're going to notice, especially over time, is that there was a lot of shoehorning
Hmm.
in the Marvel universe, where they're trying a lot to get this character in, and that character, and this character, and so on and so forth. And it's like, yeah, no, that's not
Right.
that's not always how it works. And I think, especially me being in the middle of it, you're coming in after the fact. And yes, Marvel literally has a new series that just came out. I haven't seen it yet, but there is an overexposure that's real, and it becomes exhausting, because one of the reasons why I haven't seen all their stuff is because you got to have time for that. And it
Right.
doesn't help when you have a bunch of movies in, and then this series, and then this, and then that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it is not feasible to kind of just keep doing that. It's not feasible for them, because if
Well,
nobody's watching it, they're going to stop making it. But also, like, you don't get anything to percolate. Like, some of these series, obviously, and movies take time, but
mhm.
because they're trying to keep pushing out the next thing, nothing resonates in the sense of expectation. It feels more like a downpour, like, oh, well, here comes the next thing. And one thing that doesn't help too between the TV shows as well as the movies is if you don't watch certain TV shows, you'll go to a movie and be like, oh, when the
Yeah.
hell did this happen?
And that's gonna suck because I'll be honest with you, I don't see myself like pivoting to the series just because I mean that just seems like too much. And I mean, you know what I mean? It's just like, but I have that fear that since I'm not going to really pivot to series, then as I get further on down the line, there's going to be stuff that happens, and I'm going to be like how I was with Ant-Man and Captain America and fucking Germany, and it's going to
Yeah.
like there's going to be things that are going to happen, and I'm going to miss them. I'm going to be like, you're telling me I have to go watch this now to understand this? I don't think I want to do that. I'm just going to keep on the movie course, and if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. But you, as you sit there, you will tell me right now, because I know it happens.
Okay.
I know that they kill Iron Man. I know that.
Yes.
But I'm asking you,
Spoiler alert.
is he really dead? Because I'm telling you, if he's really dead, that might piss me off to the point where, because you don't understand, when I watched Iron Man 1 and 2 yesterday,
Mhm.
I realized how much I loved him. I think
Yes.
he's better than Captain America. So I'm going to tell you, if they kill
Well,
him,
it
good.
speaks to his portrayal. Like, he's the most fun.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
he's kind of a less moody Batman in some ways, and very much even with not selling weapons, like he revels in that. I'm this tech genius with like $1 trillion.
Yeah. Well, you
Um,
listen to me.
Okay,
If
so
he's dead, I will be done with Marvel, and I will say, "Fuck you, Marvel."
so let
Because
me
I
put
don't
it to
like
you this way. Okay, so do you know about Doomsday and Secret Wars?
I know that they're coming.
Okay,
It seems like Secret Wars is something secret that I'm not supposed to know, so I don't know it.
well, it
And
deals with
Doomsday looks like
multiverses.
it's the end of the world.
The actual series
Hmm.
is pretty awesome. I'm kind of curious what that's going to look like in movie form. You're probably
Wait,
going to have to take a
wait.
lot of.
1 second. Something just connected in my brain.
Okay.
Now I'm ready to go into an overload moment because I think that it's not real. Like I think that it's something you're gonna have to like pull me back on because I'm probably wrong.
Okay.
But I hear this. You said Doomsday. What is it? Doomsday, right?
Doomsday
Is
and Secret
Doomsday
Wars.
the thing that killed Superman?
No, well, Doomsday is, yes, but in the case of Marvel, they're talking about Doctor Doom.
Oh,
Yeah.
well that okay.
DC,
Okay.
Marvel,
So
two different things.
right. Okay. I thought there was a crossover there for some weird reason, but yeah, okay. That's pardon my stupidity. I'm not with
No, not
these
at all.
superhero things all that well.
No, not at all. Hey, if you don't know, you don't know. That's why we ask questions and we learn. Um,
Mm.
no, in the case of Doomsday is the rise of Doctor Doom. Secret Wars. Remembering what I remember of Secret Wars, I'm like, how do they pull that off? But I'll say this. So, well, I'll just come out and spoil it.
Yes.
So,
Spoil
yes,
it.
we lose Iron Man,
Bastards.
but we get back RDJ
So he comes back,
as
but
Doctor Doom.
but is he okay? Is he RDJ as a different character, or is
Yes.
he RDJ as Iron Man as Doctor Doom?
That remains to be seen. That's kind of the big secret.
But you,
Because
but
we're
you read
not
the
quite
comics,
sure yet how
don't?
that one's gonna work.
But if have you read the comics? Do you know anything like in terms of
I
that?
have read them years ago.
Is there a way that we can find them and read them again so we can
Oh
determine
yeah, you can find that
as
stuff
to the
online. You could probably even find what's it called? You could probably even find uh like on YouTube, like summaries.
Mhm. Well, does okay, so hold on, stay with me now. My brain just had a thought. Um, okay. So imagine if we get oh, what is the fucking thing that I'm thinking? I kind of had a brain fart, so I think I lost it. But I'm like, I'm just trying to. So wait, but as Doctor Doom, will he look? This is a stupid question, but I mean,
No, not at all.
but if he's Doctor Doom and he looks like RDJ, RDJ is Iron Man, so by default, Doctor Doom is also Iron Man.
So
Based
we
on
haven't gotten there yet. But you will.
right. I'm jumping there. I want to jump there.
A little, and it's not so much you, but what you're going to learn is that eventually, and
Yes.
you're a few movies from it, so it's going to take a minute.
Not
Eventually,
don't hurry myself up.
well, eventually, what happens is, how do I put it? Eventually,
Mhm.
we start getting into multiverses.
Right. Now, does that happen before Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, or is the Multiverse of Madness the first multiverse exploration of multiverses?
So the real first exploration
Yes.
is in that and in Loki, which is a TV
Wait,
series.
God damn it. No,
I told you.
I
Oh yeah,
can't. I can't.
brother, this is a rabbit hole. I can tell you right now. And that's why it's not particularly easy being a Marvel fan. And it's not because they're all bad. They're not. But they have done so many series and so many movies to push out so much content that the ideal of keeping up with this stuff is easier said than done.
Impossible.
And it's not,
And
and
see,
it sucks because it's not like it's all connected, but then some of it feels very repelling because there are series for characters and you're like, why?
mhm,
Like Hawkeye.
right,
Okay, he was a side note with the Avengers. Okay, yeah, he fought the good fight. But they gave him his own series, and it's
right.
laughable because he's just a dude with a bow. And he talks about how like he fought Thanos and like these intergalactic beings, and it's like, buddy, number one, you didn't do it alone. And number two, I love not just the David and Goliath, but the ideal of like, to be a hero is to be inspiring as well as aspiring. Like, just because you
Yes.
doesn't have powers doesn't mean you can't be heroic. But as you're gonna see, even more than you were already at, the forces that are in this universe are so much grander and laughably overpowering to a guy with a bow.
Hmm.
So when they talk about the ideal of him as a hero, you're like, him? Like, you sure? He's he's it, huh? He's the dude. He's it.
My mind is
It
I
is. It is a rabbit hole. I'll be honest. It is a rabbit hole and a half because how do I put it? The ideal, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying a little bit with the Paramount movies. The ideal that they just kept it at that level
Hmm.
and kept it very grounded.
Right.
In retrospect, depending on how far you go in this rabbit hole, will make probably more sense than where they went. But more money, they're going to push more, and obviously, like they're if they feel that they can do more with it, they're going to. So it was never a question of how they were going to expand it. It was like, okay, what's it going to look like? But for me, it's like I miss the simpler times when it was just a guy with another suit that was like the other guy.
Right. And see, well, that's why that Kevin Feige or whatever his
Feige.
name is, I think I heard that he said that they're gonna stop tying the series in with the movies like that
Well,
because
I
they.
I personally think, I mean, for me,
Mhm.
I think they need to pump the brakes on the series as a whole because,
Yeah, and I think that's what he's doing. I think so.
well, the series get because of some of the characters that get series, it feels like they're in the way. Like Hawkeye, I didn't need to really deal with his internal struggle about losing someone in the midst of everything and all these characters like you're kind of watching their struggles especially after Endgame because a lot does change. But I didn't need a series, especially when like the villains in it are like fucking
Mhm.
laughable. And then they bring in characters to try to make it like edgy and like, okay, like he's tough and it's like, no, he's a guy with a fucking bow. And when you look at who he fought along, yes, he fought, but he fought with two demigods, you know, kind of a cyborg, a heightened human being,
Mhm.
all these people with like abilities, and then you've got Black Widow and him, and it's like, well, I've got two Glocks, and it's like, I've got a bow, and you're like, really? And
Mhm.
especially when certain characters, like they
Mhm.
do certain things, and you're like, no, like you don't have powers, and they have suits and technology and stuff like that, but it's like the Hawkeye thing where it's like I didn't need to get into all that. And then you have side characters like Echo and Ironheart who now have their own series in Marvel. And they're like 5 or 6 episodes. And you're like, why did I like who the fuck asked for that? That's why the series are almost like, I mean, I hate to say it, like WandaVision was actually pretty cool. And so was Moon Knight.
Mhm.
To introduce Moon Knight in a series, I kind of dug. But they're not really doing that across the board, number one. And number two, like when you look at the full spectrum of what they're going to do or where they're probably going when you look at Doomsday and Secret Wars, and then you go, okay, so demigods, omnipotent beings, traveling in space, parallel galaxies, possible time travel, like all these things that are so much grander and overpowering when you compare it to a guy with a bow and a woman with two guns. Like,
Right.
it's almost like Batman v Superman, where it's like, yes, we know why Superman doesn't mop the floor with him in like 2 seconds
Mhm.
flat, but it's like, yeah, he doesn't, but okay, how is that gonna go?
Mhm.
Like I like things like that. And especially when you're talking about characters that are such side notes, like Ironheart. Okay. In the comic, she's a big deal because she does have her own suit and stuff. But we only get introduced to her in Black Panther 2. And we don't even really get to know her. She doesn't have much of an arc. She just shows up and it's like, I'm a badass with a suit.
Mm-hmm.
And then now she has this series. Now, I'm interested because I know that a certain character apparently shows up at the end that fans have been clamoring for, and I think they just waited too long to introduce him. One series that I started and I want to finish is Agatha All Along. That's another one that's a side note character from WandaVision. So you really have Marvel like really overstuffing the turkey, especially when it's like characters that get things you don't need. Like
Right.
you want to, like Moon Knight being like a landmark character. Okay, that tracks. We get that one. And Wanda and Vision, like they were a big deal in the movies, and now they have kind of this side piece that plays into it. But it also goes back to, if you didn't watch the series, you don't know what the fuck's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So Marvel is, and I can say that now, because I'm pretty much caught up with the movies, save I think like one or two. And then the series, like I'm nowhere near being caught up. Like I'm way off from that one.
Don't feel bad because I'm never going to be caught up with that, so we're good.
Well, it doesn't seem... It's weird because it almost doesn't seem practical to be caught up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you think about the movies, and yes, they want people to buy into the fandom. But even with like the movies alone, you're like, who's going to spend that much time on this? If you have that kind of time, fucking great. But once again, who's going to spend that kind of time? Not many.
Yeah,
It's a reach. And especially when you start losing track, because they also have like What If. Now, What If the comics was literally that. Like, they had storied lines that were very important in like the whole span of Marvel, at least back then. Now I'm not entirely sure what it looks like. But they had this series called What If. And basically, they took a character and it was like, well, what if they were this? Or what if they were that? And in some cases, it's like, okay, what if Wolverine was a agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Or what if Spider-Man was part of the Fantastic Four? Now, that's all kind of cool stuff to play with as this animated series, which they did. But if there's so much content where people have enough trouble trying to keep up with this shit, how are we supposed to keep it all together?
Yeah, it makes no sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'll be honest, like for me, especially that worked for them. I'll be honest, that worked for them in the span of the pandemic. Because yes, people needed something to do, and yeah, it helped people get through. Like WandaVision, I loved. Towards the end, it got a little like, yeah, okay, you're trying to figure this out, whatever. So I didn't really buy into the end, but the show as a whole, like I still enjoy. But I think they went too far with some of that stuff, because after a while, once again, you have side note characters. You have side note characters that have series, and they weren't even set up for a series in the appearances they made in somebody else's series. Like, you have a lot of this, why is this here? Why do we have this? And it's a lot to keep up with. And it is a rabbit hole, because you are going to have some, oh my God, moments where you're like, but wait, if they establish this, then how come we're this? And all I can say to that is, Like seriously, I mean that is literally all I can say to a lot of that is yep, yep, yep. You're right. You got it. Yep. Because
I love it.
one part of that too comes back to just Marvel trying to outdo themselves and thinking that's what the fans kind of want. And I I'm one of those people. It's like the Moon Knight. Okay, that character was established way back beforehand. So to bring him into the spotlight in a series makes sense, especially if you're going to make him a major player going forward. What's happened a lot in Marvels, especially the past few years, especially after Endgame, is you have set up a ton of these characters and these side quests that are much bigger than actual side quests, and then you're like, okay, what's next for them? Oh, nothing. We don't have anything in mind. Wait, what? Yeah, we don't have a plan here. We just decided to make content and shit it out, and it's not a smaller piece to a bigger whole. It's just,
Right.
hey, we did this. You guys like this? Oh, yeah, sure. Okay, then more of that. And it's like, okay. I will say this because you're at where you're at, and I'm obviously further along.
Yes.
A lot of it is great. A lot of it is enjoyable. You will have what I like to call at least a couple of crisis of fate.
Well, I'll have to keep. We'll keep updated as I journey along.
We'll
On
actually
the
have that as
show.
episodes like Marvel Update.
Yes, that'll be definitely a good idea going forward. So I
Because in between the bad movies, there are some great ones. There are some very enjoyable ones. But latter as opposed to former, latter being now, you have more movies that feel like time killers than movies that actually are like, oh, this is a part of something.
right, and maybe that's well. See, and that's what I think the difference was with. Well, I didn't get through all the Paramount ones yet because I'm not. With the chronological thing, there's still some Paramounts left,
Right.
but the Disney ones definitely. Even though like I enjoyed Captain Marvel, it it still it didn't seem. It seemed like it was a bit of a like fluff. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It seems like there was fluff there.
There is there is there is more now more than ever. There's more fluff than there is what's been executed. That in a good way. And part of that is because when you have so much success, I,
Mhm.
I think you I think it helps and hurts because you don't see the forest from the trees anymore. Like you remember starting small and then it's like, oh well now like Disney or whoever, oh they'll give us a fucking blank check. We can do whatever we want. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't mean you should. Once again, like the
Right,
Hawkeye series, it's cute. It's fun in its own right, but you're also like, what does the storyline or the story add up to? Like
right.
there's not a lot where you're like, okay, I want to see this. Um and being a character like in the comics it feels different, but being a character where he's like set as much as he is where it's like, oh, he's paired up against like the Hulk and he's paired up against or next to like Vision or all these other characters and you're like, no. Like
Mhm.
these are guys, And yes, he has arrows that have certain technologies built in. But when you, I mean, like, okay, like Hawkeye versus Iron Man, it's like, no, no. When you think of the concept of what these characters should be able to pull off, that is not something you run with. And once again, Hawkeye is a more than perfect example because you're like no, because the the storyline, real quick,
Mhm.
it's basically showing his kind of PTSD, but also in Endgame, because he kind of goes berserk, he goes nuts, and he becomes a character called Ronin, and he just starts going on a killing spree.
Okay.
The series basically follows him trying to secure this suit because the suit is synonymous with that person, and it's like, okay, so people are going to find out this identity kind of deal, I
Mhm.
guess is the best way to put it. But the big issue with the whole thing for me is like, if you kept the identity separate, you should be fine. But also, there's another thing that connects to his wife, who was in Shield, where they met, and it's like, yeah, if you know this stuff is out there, or when you find this stuff out there, why don't you just prepare? Because a lot of the story is based around him trying to get this stuff back, and kind of the main quote unquote villains is this group of like tracksuit half-wit D-list crooks,
Mhm.
where because and it's such a and it doesn't make sense because he's like, through half of it, Hawkeye's like, oh well, I took on Thanos, and it's like, no, you didn't take on Thanos. And if you were such a Billy Badass to where taking on Thanos was like such a calling card, like these
Mhm.
tracksuit idiots should be easy to deal with. And it's just not a good series. It's fine, it's cute in its own ways, but it's
I
not
don't like
good.
when you say fine because we know what fine means.
Well, it's
We
it's
know what
a
fine means.
well, it's the best way to put it honestly is like, yeah, it's a series.
Right.
It exists. It's a thing. It's a series. You can't you can't get to. I mean, yes, it's for enjoyment, and it's not part of like the bigger whole of the MCU. But you watch it, and it begs the question, like, well, why weren't you doing something better? Like, why the fuck did you make this show? So my parting shot with all that, especially you now being, kind of you're in the thick of it, and you're at the start of
I'm
it
in.
too. And you know what? I kind of I'm excited for you, and I envy you because I remember when I felt the MCU was fun. I am a huge fan of anticipation because they're trying to work towards something. Now it doesn't happen like that because there's all these series. Oh, sorry, there's all these series and all this crap, and it's just all kind of smattered around. But me
Mhm.
personally, I'm like, yeah, if you just focus on that, maybe you could have pulled that off better.
Right.
And a lot of the series with Marvel feel that way, where it's like, if you took that energy and resources and put it there, you'd be better for it.
Right.
So,
Right.
but to you, it's, and like I said, and you, of course, like, feel free to ask me questions. I'm looking forward to like the 9 a.m. message where you're like, wait a minute, if this person is gone, how the fuck? And it's like, yeah, there's going to be a couple of those, I promise you.
Well, be on the lookout because I have a feeling they're coming soon. Because let's see.
Oh, I'm expecting them tomorrow morning.
Well, I don't know if I'm gonna watch any tonight, but I might see. I might try to get through some other stuff this weekend and then jump back into some next week. I see. It depends because it's like I start to like I really watch. It's kind of like with what music I listen to in a given day. It's like I watch what I'm in the mood. Like last Saturday, I watched fucking Mission Impossible 3, 4, and 5 back to back to back.
5 is my favorite.
5 I liked a lot.
Yeah, 5's hilarious.
3 I 4 I was a little on, but
4 is
I
pretty good. 5 I
yeah,
love. 3
I
I'm like,
see 3 I'm at 3 I liked. I'll be like, okay, so I'm gonna go on a tangent for a second here, but
okay.
it's but so originally when I saw the first one, I was like it was decent. Second one I thought was better than the first, and then I didn't see any of them until I just watched the third one last weekend.
Right.
But when I rewatched the first two like the weekend before, and then last weekend I watched 3, 4, and 5, and I thought 3 was better than 2. 4 I thought was kind of like 1 for me. And then 5 I thought was 5 I thought was on par with like 2 and 3 and 5 for me.
Right.
And then I didn't do 6 or 7 and 8's not available on streaming yet, and I was told if I could I should wait to watch 7 until 8 is available so I can kind of
Yes.
like do those in close proximity.
Yes. They are two halves of a whole, even though both movies are almost 3 hours.
Yes.
So yes, that does track.
Well, I did hear that 8 will be available on streaming, I believe, the middle of this month. So maybe I'll blow through these last 3 when that when that happens.
Gotcha. Yeah, the Mission Impossible series is another one too that's an interesting kind of rabbit hole because Tom Cruise has had such a handle on it up until, and that's starting to finally fade because we are at the 8th movie. You know, this franchise is like 29 years old.
Yes.
And it's like any franchise where it's had its high points and its low points. But the last 2 movies especially, and I haven't seen 8 yet. I've been wanting to, but as I talked about earlier, my movie going experience last night, it's like, I don't know about going
Yes.
to movies anymore. I mean, I hate to
Mhm.
sound like an old curmudgeonly little asshat, but I'm very
Sounds
much at
like
that
it
point
'cause
where
it's
I'm like,
me. Mhm.
it's, but it's also sign of the times. Like, yes, again, I sound like an old futt, but I remember when people went to the movies to watch movies.
Mhm.
Last night, it's like people fuck around on their phones. It's like, who the hell's watching a fucking movie? It's
Nobody.
me, and I'm like, it's me, and I'm the weirdo for watching the movie. Go fucking figure.
Right.
But because Tom Cruise has been so connected to these. By the way, it's his birthday today. He's 63,
Ah,
believe it or not.
ah. Happy birthday,
He
Mr. Cruz. Yeah. Oh,
he is he has become such a focal point of the series that it's to a disadvantage because he
right.
very much likes to place the stunts that he does first and foremost. And okay, yeah, that's cool. And he does some insane things stunt wise that have like broken the internet in some cases. But the movie still has to exist. And
Mhm.
to put so much of the stunts in the forefront, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure it's a deterrent where it's like, okay, so you're showing us this much of this, that, and the other thing. Uh, what else is there?
Yeah. We
So
should
I think
maybe,
some people
you know,
it
when
kind of
8 comes out, when 8 comes out, we should do a Mission Impossible thing and just do a.
Oh, now you're talking.
I think we should, and I still want to do a John Wick thing. I have to watch. 3 and 4. I've been meaning to do that, but
Well,
I'm like,
that should be your assignment. Maybe this weekend.
okay, you want to. You know what? Then how about for next week? We'll get into some John Wick,
Yes.
and I'll get through 3. And I'll get through 3 and 4. During the weekend and through the course of I'll get through them, and then we'll do that for next week. We'll do some John Wick.
Boom.
That should be good.
Boom. Lined up.
Mm-hmm.
See, look at that. We were trying to shoot for 2 hours. We got to 3.
Yes, it's still, you know what I mean. It's still good.
It's a work in progress. There you go. Work in progress.
Yes, we're good. We're good.
Yes. We'll shoot
But
for 2.5 next time, and then go 7 hours.
Yeah, why not? Dude, you know,
Hey, if you're gonna overshoot the mark, like don't fuck around. Like overshoot that shit.
dude. Speaking of that, we did a show, dude. Okay, you want to talk about long shows, and this is the last thing I'll say, and then we can cut off or whatever. But okay, so there was a show that used to air here on Friday nights with this one indie filmmaker, and we would literally start shows at 9 p.m. and then we would do what we would call like an off the wall portion that was for Patreon, Patreons only, that would start at
Right.
11, and that would go till fucking sometimes like 4 a.m. or 4:30 a.m. Dude, by the time that ended, I'll be honest with you, like Saturdays, that show ran for, I think maybe we did it for, I want to say like maybe 3 months. Dude, Saturdays, I was a fucking zombie.
Oh, I can imagine.
Because I would go to sleep at like 5 in the morning when the sun was coming up, and then I would be up at 7:30. And then I was like, yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna die. But
See, I love shit
dude,
like that.
and you know what? To speak of fucking Morgan, no, I loved it too, but it was just, but dude, to speak of fucking Morgan, he would come on at fucking 9 p.m. and he would be there until like 3 or 3:30 in the morning, straight fucking through, most of the time. And I just, dude, really, I mean that says something. And it's a shame that I don't have those shows anymore because idiots got the old
Right.
network YouTube channel nuked. So I don't have those anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's definitely unfortunate. Once again, it kind of goes back to, any impact someone made. If we have any piece of that, like that's how we kind of keep them in our way and keep them in our hearts. Yeah, and those kind of podcasts, like it reminds me of like old school midnight radio, because I used to love that shit. Where you're like, wait, what? Like, and I grew up in a time where I didn't have too much, like radio was still more like daytime, morning drive stuff. Where I grew up in Hawaii, like midnight radio, midnight shift type of content programs didn't exist outside of Radio Free Hawaii, which I interned for. But like now, like with obviously YouTube, podcasting, streaming, and I love that stuff because once again, with podcasting or with streaming, we get into these tangents. And what better way to get into an off the wall tangent that you record than 3 a.m, being punchy and being without sleep and where you're like, wait, what?
I would love to do that now because in a sense now I have the time to do it now, and I mean right now we're on YouTube and whatever, and we're also on the internet radio station live. So we're on live internet radio right now as well
Yeah.
as YouTube and everything else. So I mean we have the means. That would be something cool to do. We should think about that sometime. I would think about
Absolutely. And
yeah.
and like me personally, I one it goes back to like radio just being whatever it is. Like I love like the old Wolfman Jack stuff where it's like, where they were like, "Hey, what happens if you point a camera at like a radio personality that has the energy and the robust type of going out, if you will,
Mhm.
of a TV show host?" And when they put a camera on him, for a lot of people, it was like, "Oh, you don't." Why doesn't this guy? Why does this guy just have a radio show? And he had a cartoon at one point and like other stuff. But I remember very clearly like Wolfman Jack on the Midnight Dial. Here it is, kids.
Mhm. There you go. Dude, I should have you do some bumpers as Wolfman Theo or something. That
Wolfman.
would be good.
I think I could pull that off, but I don't know.
Well, it's something we should experiment with at some point. But no, seriously, like if you would ever want to do something it doesn't even have to be a regular thing. Like even if we did like an Insomniacs radio type thing,
Oh,
and
I
we don't
love that.
even have to have, you know what I mean? We could just we don't even have to have the video live. Like we could be on here recording the video and just have the audio live. I mean, you know what I
That'd be
mean? It's
cool.
we could do that. So, think about it. But if you're up for it, we could definitely do that, even if it's like a special event thing or something. You know what I mean? Like there's not too many like event things. I think like that would be cool.
Oh, that would be a good time. I mean, I look at like the one Kevin Smith just did where it was 4 hours and 30 minutes, and that was just him and the producer guy. Like Mark Bernardin wasn't a part of that one, and I mean, he answered like letters and stuff. I think that's one you definitely got to put feelers out for because that would be like comment section and chat section
Right,
where that would. I mean, we could find something to talk about, I'm sure,
right.
but if people were to keep fueling the engine that way, that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to play around with that. I will have to put some feelers out and maybe we'll gauge and see what, you know, if it's possible. Cuz that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet. I'm down, definitely.
All right, no, we'll work it out. We'll definitely work it out.
Look at that. We've
Yeah,
already
I
got
mean,
we've already got John Wick lined up for next week.
mhm.
Marvel update, and then we'll do kind of a Midnight Madness show.
Yeah. I mean, there
Look
you
at
go, man.
that.
The creativity is just flowing.
Oh yeah, totally.
Mhm.
Well, on that note,
Mhm.
yeah, we didn't hit. We didn't do two. We got to three.
Yeah, that was yeah, what did I Yeah, I have to yeah, what was it? Yeah. My brain is not functioning at the moment. I don't know what the I'm just like,
Welcome to my world.
yeah, I don't know what the I mean, I only have a cup of coffee a day now, although I should
Boo!
increase tea,
Just
but
one.
just one in black and that's it.
Oh, I call that Idris Elba.
I mean, that's the thing. That is the thing.
mm,
Idris.
yeah, a friend of mine, she's got a thing for him, and hey, come on, it's Idris Elba. Like, let's be honest here. But yeah, she was like, I got my Idris Elba this morning. I'm like, you and everybody else, honey.
There you go. There you go. Mm. Ah, shit. That's great.
Well, it has been quite a show.
Yes, it has been. It has been bittersweet. But
Indeed, we will miss Morgan greatly. Like even tonight, looking at like the chat stuff, where it's like, we we reveled in that. As soon as his name
yeah.
would pop up, we knew he was engaged as well as going to make the show that much more, particularly that episode and in general. So yeah, sorely missed, very much so, and once again, the deepest condolences to his family and everyone who loved him, and I mean, just from seeing such an outpour, um, he affected a lot of people in a positive way, which is great, but also says a lot about these days where it feels like, and I know it's more a product of like the internet and social media, but we just don't get, I feel like we just don't get people like that anymore that make, positive influences because of what they love. And it's not about like, oh, well, fuck this or whatever. It's more no, I'm going to kind of lean in and engage what I enjoy and push that out to the world, bring that out into the world, as opposed to, you know, maybe people like me complaining about the movie theater experience going sideways. But I don't think I'm entirely alone there. But it's a credit to Morgan as a person and the influence he had over so many people in such a good way. So we're gonna miss you, sir.
Yes.
And I mean, miss you is putting it mildly, especially here on the show and to so many of us. So it has been a bittersweet one, but I mean, I think we'd both be amiss if we didn't take the time to connect that dot.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Definitely important. So with that, good sir.
Yes. Until next week, we will see you later.
Thank you, Cleveland. Good night.